Chapter 358. Enlightened Master Profound Meow was already waiting for Lu Ping in the secret room. He asked, "Did you find anything?" Lu Ping's face lit up. The soaring cloud grotto really lives up to its name. It's a pity that I've only been here for a short time. Enlightened Master Profound Meow smiled. There will be more opportunities in the future. I'm just afraid that with your cultivation, you won't be interested in the inheritance here anymore. Lu Ping smiled and didn't reply. Enlightened Master Profound Meow suddenly asked, "With your current cultivation, fame, and status in the sect, it's time to accept disciples. The sect's annual apprenticeship ceremony is about to be held. Do you have any disciples in mind? Or do you want to choose before the ceremony?" Lu Ping knew that Enlightened Master Profound Meow was in charge of the apprenticeship ceremony. Many mid-stage blood condensation disciples had to report to him before they wanted to become a disciple of a core forging cultivator. Then, Enlightened Master Profound Meow would gather the information of these disciples for the core forging cultivators to choose from. Currently, Lu Ping had no intention of accepting disciples. Moreover, Lu Ping didn't want to try his luck aimlessly at the apprenticeship ceremony, so he refused. Disciple has no intention of accepting disciples at the moment. Enlightened Master Profound Meow was a little disappointed. That's a pity. Our sect has more and more disciples in the mid-blood condensation realm. Our core forging realm cultivators are also unwilling to accept too many disciples. As a result, there are more and more mid-blood condensation realm disciples who haven't accepted a master. In the long run, it will be disadvantageous to the sect. Lu Ping didn't know how to answer. He could only say, "No matter what, this is a sign that the sect is becoming more and more prosperous." After returning from the soaring cloud grotto, Lu Ping didn't go to the crafting hall. Instead, he was stopped by Shi Lingling. Lu Ping looked at her in surprise. "Senior Martial Sister Shi, do you have any orders for me?" Shi Lingling looked at his serious expression and giggled. "How many people in Jinling can order you now?" Lu Ping smiled awkwardly and said, "Senior sister must be joking." Shi Lingling teased Lu Ping for a while before saying, "I came to ask for Junior Apprentice Brothers' help. The True Spirit Monastery's grand competition is about to begin. Junior Apprentice Brother, you can be said to be one of the most outstanding disciples of the monastery, and you're also the richest among your peers. No matter what, I have to come over and take advantage of you." Hearing this, Lu Ping found it a bit strange and said, "Senior Apprentice Sister Shi went to the side courtyard to become an immortal elder? Does the courtyard already need a core forging enlightened master as an immortal elder?" There had always been only one core forging enlightened master in the True Spirit Monastery, and that was the monastery's mountain elder. Usually, it was an early core forging cultivator who had no hope of advancing to the next realm. After enlightened Master Xinyong passed away, the position of Mountain Elder had always been held by Enlightened Master Xinyuan. With Shi Lingling's qualifications, even if she had reached core forging and was stronger than Enlightened Master Xinyuan, it was impossible for her to be given such an important position. Shi Lingling nodded and said, "Ever since the war with the monster race, the monastery's teaching methods have changed. Although the leading immortal elder is still a mid-blood condensation cultivator, he is only responsible for supervising the blood-refining disciple's cultivation. Every time a disciple breaks through to the blood condensation realm, they have to choose to stay in the side courtyard for a year. As for teaching, it is the sect's core forging enlightened masters who are assigned to teach. Now, Senior Apprentice Sister Hu and I go to the side courtyard every half a month to give lectures to the blood-refining and blood condensation disciples. I mainly teach cultivation techniques, while Senior Apprentice Sister Hu teaches the method of setting up formations for those who are interested in formations. Not only the two of us, but Yao Yong, Du Feng, Chen Lian, Zhong Jian, and Ma Yu also return from the outer islands to give lectures to the side courtyard's disciples. Shi Lingling's words stunned Lu Ping. The True Soul side courtyard was a place to nurture the sect's reserve cultivators. The reason why the sect sent an early core forging cultivator who had no hope of advancing to the next level as the mountain head was to maintain the side courtyard's neutral position. The core forging enlightened masters in the sect also had a tacit understanding that they would not interfere with the side courtyard's affairs. But now, this tacit understanding seemed to have been broken. Shi Lingling looked at Lu Ping's expression and naturally guessed what he was thinking. She said, "There's nothing we can do about it. The war between humans and demons on the outer islands is getting more and more intense. Ever since Tianling Uncle Master's Dharma Idol Assembly, although Uncle Master Guoxianshan and the others defeated the demons, it seems that the sects in the North Sea found it hard to accept. Now, our sect seems to be a little isolated in the North Sea Alliance, and the demons have deliberately increased their harassment on the outer islands. Now, fights between core forging cultivators of the two clans have become a common occurrence." Lu Ping frowned as he listened to Shi Lingling. He gradually understood what she was trying to say. In the North Sea Alliance, although Jinling was on par with Xinling's sect, it was still an opponent that the sects in the North Sea Alliance had deliberately chosen to prevent Xinling's sect from growing too strong. In the eyes of the sects in the North Sea, Xinling's sect was still the true #1 sect in the North Sea. However, after the Heavenly Spirit Dharma Idol Assembly, the sects in the North Sea suddenly realized that Jinling's strength had actually grown to the point where it could really challenge Xinling's sect, surpassing the other sects by a large margin. Naturally, the attitudes of the sects in the North Sea changed again. They truly regarded Jinling as an equal to Xinling's sect and distanced themselves from them. In addition, the demons also realized that after the North Sea beast tide, they seemed to have missed an important enemy, so they also strengthened their attacks on Jinling. Now, Jinling seemed to be under pressure from both inside and outside. It urgently needed backup cultivators to grow, but it was also afraid that they would die because of their rapid growth. Therefore, while the core forging cultivators were used to preach in the side courtyard, they also forced the newly advanced blood condensation cultivators to cultivate in the side courtyard for a year. At this time, Lu Ping suddenly remembered Shi Lingling's purpose for coming here. He asked, "What do you need me to do this time, senior sister?" Shi Lingling knew that Lu Ping had already agreed to her request, so she happily said, "The side courtyard's blood refining disciples competition naturally has to award blood condensing pills. But this time, Uncle Master Xin Yuan has taken a unique approach. He directly applied for a batch of spirit herbs to refine blood condensing pills, and then invited a pill master to refine them on the spot. Disciples who are interested in learning alchemy will be able to observe the competition, which will greatly improve their alchemy skills. Also, this time, Uncle Master Xin Yuan said that the number of blood condensing pills refined will be the number of blood condensing pills awarded in the competition. Since that's the case, of course we'll invite the best pill master. Among all the pill masters in our sect, only you have the highest alchemy skills. If I don't invite you, who else can I invite?" Lu Ping blinked and smiled. "Senior apprentice sister must be joking. Our sect has 5 alchemy grandmasters and 1 alchemy grandmaster. Other than me, the others' alchemy skills are all above mine. Why would senior apprentice sister come to find me?" Shi Lingling was also the descendant of one of the sect's Dharma adepts, Lao Zu. Her parents were also core forging enlightened masters. Lu Ping didn't believe that with her background, she wouldn't be able to invite the other alchemy grandmasters. Although Lu Ping's reputation as an alchemy grandmaster had spread throughout the sect, compared to the other 4 veteran alchemy grandmasters, his alchemy skills were still immature. Shi Lingling was surprised by Lu Ping's question and said, "I didn't expect that junior apprentice brother wouldn't know. I thought senior apprentice sister who had already told you. It seems that senior apprentice sister really did a lot of things for you, in order to let you go into seclusion and peace." Shi Lingling paused for a moment and then said, "The sect doesn't allow core forging cultivators to interfere in the monastery's matters. But the current situation is urgent, so we, the young cultivators who have just advanced to core forging, as well as our sect's cultivators on the North Sea rookie list, were sent to the monastery to preach about the Tao. This can also encourage the sect's disciples to cultivate, especially disciples like Yao Yong, Du Feng, and Chen Lian who are on the rookie list. They are very popular in the monastery. Every time it's their turn to preach, there are practically no empty seats." When Shi Lingling said this, Lu Ping more or less understood what she meant. Because of the North Sea rookie list and the restriction of young cultivators who had advanced to core forging, Lu Ping naturally became the only alchemy grandmaster who could participate in the monastery's grand competition. If Shi Lingling didn't look for him, who else could she look for? At the same time, Lu Ping also saw another layer of meaning in this method of the sect. The core forging cultivators who were able to enter the monastery to teach were all elites among cultivators of the same level. Every once in a while, the sect would summon them back to preach about the Tao to the monastery's disciples. At the same time, it was also a form of protection for these cultivators who had just advanced to early core forging and had the potential to advance further in the future. Seeing that Lu Ping understood her meaning, Lingling chuckled and said, "Speaking of which, Junior Martial Brother is also one of the core forging cultivators in the monastery. Moreover, all the disciples in the monastery have the highest expectations for you. After all, not every cultivator can advance to the third layer of core forging in 50 years, defeat, or even kill a mid-core forging cultivator, and become an alchemy grandmaster. Not to mention, you've also comprehended a great sword technique and defeated Xianling sect's genius sword cultivator, Ouyang Weijian. The name Water Sword Immortal, Lu Xianping. Even the mid-core forging cultivators ranked above you on the rookie list can't compare. Right now, there are already quite a number of people who view you as the #1 sword cultivator in the North Sea." Lu Ping did not know that he had already obtained the title of Water Sword Immortal and could not help but feel somewhat surprised. Truth be told, he was secretly delighted. However, when he heard that he was called the #1 sword cultivator in the North Sea, he frowned. This title of #1 was not a good thing. For the sake of this title, it would likely bring him a lot of trouble in the future. He did not know who had spread this saying. However, he was not a sword cultivator. Sword techniques were his most common method, but not his strongest. If anyone thought that he was a sword cultivator, Lu Ping did not mind revealing some other methods to make them suffer. After bidding farewell to Lingling, Lu Ping made his way to the artifact forging hall. Lu Ping directly went to find Sage Enigma Flame. Due to his relationship with Chan Lian, Sage Enigma Flame treated Lu Ping quite warmly. He directly brought Lu Ping to the legacy site of the artifact forging hall. Lu Ping brought out the mystic iron token in his hand. At the same time, he sent his primary energy into it. The side of the token with the word artifact immediately shone with light. Immediately, a portal appeared before Lu Ping. Lu Ping took a step forward, and his figure disappeared from the artifact forging hall. The legacy site of the artifact forging hall was not a grotto heaven. Rather, it was a spatial magic artifact. It looked like a massive warehouse. At the same time, it also looked like a massive maze. The warehouse was further divided into various smaller portals. Inside the portals were magic treasures of various shapes and functions. The portal that appeared before Lu Ping only contained the magic treasures of ordinary magic treasures and spiritual magic treasures. The magic treasures of higher grades did not appear. Lu Ping walked straight into the portal for spiritual magic treasures and chose a water-type spiritual magic treasure. Only then did he arrive at a foggy space. After temporarily comprehending a minor evasion technique, Lu Ping was now lacking a defensive-type magic treasure. Although his defensive minor magic treasure was in no way inferior compared to ordinary defensive magic treasures, defensive minor magic treasures were generally the quickest and last line of defense for cultivators. They were used to save lives. Additionally, every time a defensive minor magic treasure was broken, it would weaken its defensive astral energy. It could only be recovered through the cultivator's nourishment. In comparison, magic treasures were much more durable. Lu Ping's divine sense spread out and immediately captured the trace of a magic treasure in the space. However, the reason why spiritual magic treasures were spiritual was that they had many primitive instincts. Although they would not automatically choose their master, the moment Lu Ping used his divine sense to capture them, Lu Ping could also detect whether the magic treasure could fully exert its own cultivation method. Just as Lu Ping's divine sense explored this magic treasure, the magic treasure made a slight tremble, as if it was avoiding Lu Ping's action. Although Lu Ping could still control it, since Lu Ping had come here, he naturally had to make a good choice. So he continued to move forward, and at the same time, his divine sense spread out in all directions, trying to capture a suitable defensive magic treasure. During this period, Lu Ping also encountered 2 suitable magic treasures. When Lu Ping's divine sense explored one of them, Lu Ping could feel a kind of joy from it. Unfortunately, this magic treasure was a spiritual magic treasure refined from a tortoise shell. After thinking about it, Lu Ping gave up. Lu Ping's divine sense spread out, but he could not find the edge of this space. It must be quite large. If he continued to walk like this, he did not know when he would reach the end. So, he reached out and took out a small banner, waving it fiercely towards the space. Suddenly, a strong wind blew in the misty space. The gray mist flowed rapidly, carrying the mystic treasures along with it. Lu Ping quickly cast a few spells, and the mist turned into a gray river, carrying the mystic treasures as it flowed past in front of him. Then, the mystic treasures rushed into the distance. Lu Ping's divine sense spread out into the river, and carefully examined the spiritual magic treasures flowing through the river. After passing by 4 to 5 magic treasures in a row, Lu Ping's eyebrows gradually furrowed. His actions naturally could not be hidden from the people of the refining hall. If he did not choose a magic treasure that suited him, he was afraid that the cultivators of the refining hall would stop him. Could it be that he could only randomly choose one to use? If so, his trip to the refining hall was somewhat not worth it. Just as Lu Ping was hesitating, a faint silver light suddenly jumped out of the misty river and happily revolved around Lu Ping. Chapter 359. Although Zhenling was known as a large sect in the North Sea, there were not many water-attribute psychic magic treasures and ordinary magic treasures in this space. Lu Ping waved a strange little flag, causing the mist in the entire space to stir. Immediately, the magic treasures were all wrapped up in the mist river. The magic treasure that flew directly towards Lu Ping stunned Lu Ping for a moment. Then, he felt a burst of joy. This kind of psychic magic treasure was not something that ordinary psychic magic treasures could achieve. Lu Ping looked at the small triangular flag in front of him. The flag looked a little dim, and one corner was even a little damaged. However, when Lu Ping tried to input some quintessential qi into the flag, the entire flag suddenly lit up. The fluttering flag immediately brought a burst of life. But then, Lu Ping smiled bitterly. When Lu Ping injected quintessential qi into the flag, he found that the flag had condensed 6 quintessential talismans. In other words, it had reached the peak of psychic magic treasures. Moreover, the quality of this flag was extremely high. It was not even inferior to Lu Ping's personal magic treasure, the Gentian Pearl. With Lu Ping's current quintessential qi, if he used all his strength to control a psychic magic treasure with 6 quintessential talismans, it would be enough. However, how much quintessential qi would be left to maintain the magic treasure and control other magic treasures? Moreover, the broken corner of the flag would require even more quintessential qi from Lu Ping. Fortunately, the defensive power of this magic treasure was absolutely great. Under the control of Lu Ping's quintessential qi, the small flag floated above his head. The flag unfurled, and a purple curtain of light hung down to protect Lu Ping. Its defensive power could be said to be the strongest among all the defensive magic treasures Lu Ping had ever seen. Lu Ping's expression was somewhat conflicted. Although he had come to the refining hall in search of a magic treasure, Lu Ping had taken too many in the end. However, a magic treasure like this made it difficult for Lu Ping. If he chose it, it would be difficult for Lu Ping to use it in a short period of time. Forget it, with my cultivation, I'm not far from breaking through to the mid-core forging stage. When that time comes, maybe it won't be so difficult to use this magic weapon. In the end, Lu Ping was still somewhat reluctant to part with this psychic magic treasure with the 6 Daos talismans. Not to mention, the fact that this magic treasure had automatically flown towards Lu Ping made Lu Ping feel that this small flag was not as simple as it seemed. Lu Ping walked out from the artifact forging hall's legacy space and saw Sage Enigma Flame looking at Lu Ping with a puzzled expression. Lu Ping knew that his actions in the space could not be hidden from the Deputy Hall Master of the Equipment Refinement Hall. As expected, when Sage Enigma Flame saw Lu Ping walk out, he said, "I didn't think that the water-controlling flag would choose you." Hearing that, Lu Ping was somewhat surprised. He said, "Martial uncle, you mean to say that the water-controlling flag chooses its own master? Isn't that a magic treasure with the 7 Daos talismans reaching the spirit-nurturing stage? Could it be?" When Lu Ping considered that line of thought, his eyes lit up. Sage Enigma Flame nodded. Next, he shook his head and said, This magic treasure was once a spirit-nurturing magic treasure. However, it was badly damaged and fell to the ranks of the peak-level psychic magic treasures. Lu Ping looked at the small flag in his hand. The corner of the small flag had been damaged. Then, Sage Enigma Flame continued. This magic treasure has a rather long history in our sect. It can be traced back to the time when Fei Ling sect was destroyed. Hearing the words Fei Ling sect, Lu Ping's expression turned serious. Over 4,000 years ago, this sect was the #1 sect in the North Sea. Lu Ping had received quite a bit of its legacy. Have you heard of Zhongxian Laozu? Sage Enigma Flame did not directly explain the origins of the water-controlling flag. Instead, he asked Lu Ping about it. Zhongxian Laozu? Lu Ping was shocked once more. He asked, back then, he was the #1 Grandmaster Artifact Forging Master in the North Sea. Could this magic treasure have come from Zhongxian Laozu? You know quite a bit. However, Sage Enigma Flame immediately shook his head and said, this magic treasure is not Zhongxian Laozu's handiwork. Rather, it came from his personal disciple, the #1 genius of Fei Ling sect back then. He had reached the Grandmaster Artifact Forging Master at the late core forging stage, the #1 cultivator beneath the Dharma characteristic stage, Jiao Yuqiang. When Lu Ping heard the name Jiao Yuqiang, he became dumbfounded. Instantly, Lu Ping recalled the words he had seen on the wall of a secret chamber in Fei Ling Island's Artifact Forging Hall. The name Jiao Yuqiang was written on it. Additionally, the Fei Ling sect cultivator who was hiding inside the secret chamber had clearly set Jiao Yuqiang as his goal to surpass. Now, Chun Shaolian finally realized that this cultivator from over 4,000 years ago could have such accomplishments. Moreover, even after 4,000 years, he had yet to be forgotten by the world of cultivation. Seeing the stunned expression on Lu Ping's face, Sage Enigma Flame assumed that Lu Ping had never heard of this name before. However, this name clearly held great significance for Sage Enigma Flame. Sage Enigma Flame said, this water-controlling flag is his first work after becoming a Grandmaster Artifact Forging Master. It is also his most cherished spirit-nurturing magic treasure. Back then, during the extermination of Fei Ling sect, Jiao Yuqiang killed off 5 late core forging stage experts from the various sections. He also relied on this water-controlling flag to take on the attack from a Dharma characteristic stage cultivator, Laozu. In the end, he killed the Dharma characteristic stage cultivator. The cultivators from the various sects besieging Fei Ling sect were greatly shocked. In the end, they had no choice but to throw away their pride. 2 Dharma characteristic stage cultivators, Laozu, rushed forward to besiege Jiao Yuqiang. By then, Jiao Yuqiang's primary energy had long since been depleted due to the continuous battles. However, before he fell, he managed to seriously wound one of the Laozu cultivators. Even so, the 2 Laozu cultivators managed to seriously injure one of the Laozu cultivators. However, that was not what Sage Enigma Flame was concerned about. Thus, he asked, Martial Uncle, can this water-controlling flag be repaired? The moment Lu Ping asked that question, he knew that it was a foolish question. As expected, Sage Enigma Flame glared at him and said, if it can be repaired, how could it have remained in the legacy space for 4,000 years? Lu Ping retreated in embarrassment. However, he was puzzled. The water-controlling flag was just a spirit-connected magic treasure. In the eyes of ordinary master craftsmen, it might be an extremely brilliant item. However, in the past 4,000 years, there had been several master craftsmen who had appeared in Zhenling. According to Lu Ping's knowledge, the current master of the Armorer Hall, Laozu, Sage Tianbao, was the only master craftsman in the sect. Could it be that even these masters could not repair it? Sage Enigma Flame seemed to have read Lu Ping's mind. He explained, the water-controlling flag was forged by Jiao Yuqiang using his own crafting method. Even his master, Zhongshuan Laozu, admitted that he was no match for this crafting method. He said that as long as Jiao Yuqiang advanced to the Dharma manifestation stage, Zhongshuan Laozu would hand over the title of the top master craftsman in the North Sea. Hearing that, Lu Ping was somewhat disappointed. However, Enigma Flame Laozu continued, legend has it that Jiao Yuqiang's crafting method, in addition to inheriting Zhongshuan Laozu's legacy, was also inspired by the protective array left behind by the previous true spirit Laozu of Jinling sect. Thus, he created his own unique crafting method. After Jinling sect was destroyed, the other sects naturally would not let go of Jiao Yuqiang's legacy. However, they found nothing. Later, the master craftsmen of the North Sea turned their attention to the protective array of Jinling sect, hoping to learn something from it. However, the protective array was the work of the previous true spirit Laozu of Jinling sect. Even Dharma manifestation Laozu could not do anything about it. According to the rumors, Jiao Yuqiang might have the blueprint of the protective array of Jinling sect. However, this is only a rumor. No one has ever obtained the blueprint of the protective array of Jinling sect. Lu Ping's face was filled with fascination. His right hand unconsciously touched the storage ring on his left hand. Out of the refining hall, Lu Ping had regained his calm expression. Obviously, the matters of Jinling sect were not something that he could come into contact with now. All he could do was to collect some secrets of Jinling sect. Some things involved too much. Before he had enough strength, it was better not to reveal them. Just like the refining hall, the alchemy pavilion was built with earth fire drawn from the ground. However, it was different from the explosive aura emitted by the entire mountain peak of the refining hall. Although the alchemy pavilion also emitted a scorching aura, this aura was less explosive than the refining hall. It was more restrained. Unlike the refining hall, the alchemy pavilion had an endless stream of people coming and going. Many of them were ordinary cultivators of Jinling. Obviously, they were here to ask for pills. They either refined pills or exchanged for pills. The alchemy pavilion could be said to be an important pillar of wealth for Jinling. Seeing Lu Ping walking over, many blood condensation realm cultivators initially didn't think much of him. They thought that he was just an ordinary disciple who came to ask for pills. However, when they got closer, they felt that Lu Ping had an unfathomable aura and immediately made way for him. Lu Ping calmly walked towards the alchemy pavilion. From time to time, there were core forging realm cultivators entering and exiting the alchemy pavilion. Some of them recognized Lu Ping and knew that he was a newly promoted alchemy grandmaster of their sect. They all nodded to show their goodwill. Some of the older core forging realm enlightened masters looked at Lu Ping with a strange expression. However, when someone asked them about it, they kept their mouths shut, unwilling to say anything. When Lu Ping entered the main hall of the alchemy pavilion, he saw a familiar face greeting cultivator. The cultivator in the main hall was also surprised to see Lu Ping. This person was the pill-testing enlightened master who met Lu Ping when he came to the alchemy pavilion to obtain the qualifications to become a pill-refining master. This pill-testing enlightened master didn't greet Lu Ping immediately. Instead, he pondered for a moment, then walked forward with a smile. "So it's Grandmaster Lu Xinping. May I know what brings you here today?" Lu Ping saw that the pill-testing enlightened master didn't greet Lu Ping as a Jinling, but Lu Ping didn't mind. He flashed the black iron token in his hand and said bluntly, "On orders from the sect, I'm going to the alchemy pavilion's inheritance ground." When the pill-testing enlightened master saw the token in Lu Ping's hand, he couldn't help but be surprised. Then, his expression turned serious. He turned sideways and said, "Follow me." Outside a secret room in the back hall, the pill-testing enlightened master carefully knocked on the stone door. Standing outside the door, Lu Ping could feel that there was a huge layer of heat behind the door. Clearly, someone was concocting pills in the secret room. Moreover, Lu Ping's spiritual sense could sense that this heat contained an unusual aura. The person inside the secret room must be using a type of heaven and earth spirit fire. The stone door opened inwards, and a wave of heat rushed out. If it was an ordinary mortal, just this wave of heat would be enough to turn them into ashes. Even an ordinary blood condensation cultivator would be in a difficult position under the sudden attack of this heat wave. Lu Ping frowned but didn't say anything. Before the heat wave reached him, it suddenly turned into a cool breeze that spread out, causing the atmosphere in the alchemy pavilion's rear hall to change. A middle-aged cultivator with a serious expression walked out. Ignoring Lu Ping, he said with some anger, "Junior brother Xiandian, didn't you say that I would be concocting a batch of pills in the next 2 days and not to disturb me? If there's anything, you can make the decision yourself." Enlightened Master Xindian was obviously the title of Enlightened Master Pill Testing Enlightened Master. He smiled helplessly and said, "This is Master Lu Xinping. He has a black iron token in his hand and wants to enter the land of inheritance, so he can only find you. Could it be that I have to disturb Master for this matter?" "Master Lu?" Enlightened Master Xian Yin snorted coldly, causing the atmosphere in the back hall to heat up even more. His expression was filled with disdain towards Lu Ping's status as a Grandmaster Pill Refining Master. He said, "Kid, I am currently concocting an extremely important pill. Come back next time." Finished speaking, he turned around to return to the secret room. "Black Cloud Pill?" Lu Ping's mocking voice suddenly came from behind him, causing Enlightened Master Xian Yin to stop in his tracks. If even a Black Cloud Pill, which can barely reach the mid-core forging stage, is considered extremely important, then Zhenling's reputation as an alchemy grandmaster is really undeserved. Enlightened Master Xian Yin fiercely turned his head, only to see that Lu Ping had completely ignored his late-core forging stage spiritual sense. Lu Ping's face was calm and indifferent, but this was the greatest mockery towards him. Lu Ping saw that Enlightened Master Xian Yan's face was gloomy, so he stretched out his hand and showed the black iron token in front of Enlightened Master Xian Yan. "It seems that Grandmaster Xian Yan is not in a hurry to concoct pills. You should leave now. At least let this junior know whether or not Zhenling's orders are unimpeded in the alchemy pavilion." Lu Ping's big hat pressed down on him, causing Enlightened Master Xian Yan's face to become gloomy. He waved his hand and walked towards an underground secret room in the back hall, not even closing the stone door behind him. As Enlightened Master Xian Yin waved his hand, a muffled sound suddenly came from the previous alchemy room. Then, a burnt and fragrant smell, accompanied by a burst of rich spiritual energy, rushed out from the secret room. Enlightened Master Xian Yin walked in front of Lu Ping without turning his head. Lu Ping sneered and immediately followed. Only Enlightened Master Xian Yin hesitated as he looked towards the secret room. His mouth twitched and his face showed a pained expression. When Lu Ping entered the underground secret room, he paused for a moment. Then, he glanced to his left without anyone noticing and continued to walk towards the secret room. Enlightened Master Xian Yin stood in the middle of the secret room. When he saw Lu Ping, his face immediately darkened. "Little brat, I'm sure you know that the people from Chonghua Manor and Carefree Manor are not welcomed in the alchemy pavilion. Don't say that I'm making things difficult for you. This time, the inheritance grounds will only be open for 3 days. What good fortune you can obtain will depend on you. If you don't obtain anything in 3 days, then don't blame my alchemy pavilion for playing tricks on you." Lu Ping turned a deaf ear to Enlightened Master Xian Yan's words and directly activated the mysterious iron token with the word "pill" engraved on it. Immediately, a door appeared in the middle of the secret room. Lu Ping lifted his foot and was about to enter when he suddenly stopped in midair. Turning his head towards Enlightened Master Xian Yin, he sneered, "The people from Chonghua Manor and Carefree Manor are not welcomed by the alchemy pavilion? Since when did the Zhenling's alchemy pavilion belong to Fornax Laozu? Was it Fornax Laozu himself who said so?" Enlightened Master Xian Yan's expression changed. Even Enlightened Master Xian Dian's face darkened. Lu Ping had already entered the inheritance grounds and disappeared, leaving only Lu Ping's cold laughter echoing in the secret room. Chapter 360. The door had already disappeared from the secret room. Master Xian Dian walked to the center of the secret room and stood side by side with Master Xian Yin. Neither of them said anything. After a while, footsteps could be heard from the stairs of the underground secret room. A middle-aged man walked down. Seeing Master Xian Yin and Master Xian Dian, he said, "Eldest brother, fourth brother." Master Xian Yin nodded. Master Xian Dian smiled and said, "Third brother, you're here?" Master Xian Yin snorted coldly and said, "He's been here for a long time." Master Xian Dian heard this and smiled awkwardly. Master Xian Dian saw that third brother was being rebuked by second brother. So he changed the topic and said, "Brother, will there be any problems with what we did this time?" Master Xian Yin snorted coldly and said, "What problems?" Lu Tianling gave him the black iron token to directly open the Earth-level inheritance. Are we supposed to lower the level of the inheritance for him? Master Xiandian smiled and said, of course it's not because of that. It's just that there really isn't anything good in the space that senior brother opened this time. If Lu Tianling asks about it, it won't look good on us. Master Xiandian looked at Master Xiandian strangely and said, fourth brother, when did you become so timid? What, now that Lu Tianling has become a Dharma plane, you don't have enough confidence? At this time, third brother who had just entered also said, that's right. Fourth brother, our alchemy pavilion has a special position in the sect. Since when do we need to listen to Lu Tianling? Without waiting for Master Xiandian to speak, Master Xiandian suddenly scolded him. Xinjing, shut up. You have to understand that the alchemy pavilion belongs to our sect, not the Fornax branch's alchemy pavilion. The Fornax branch is also a branch of the Jinling branch. Lu Tianling is also your senior sister. In the future, don't keep saying the 3 words alchemy pavilion. Reverend Xinjing didn't know why Reverend Xiandian would suddenly yell at him. He looked at Reverend Xiandian in bewilderment. Master Xiandian knew that Master Xiandian had been provoked by Lu Ping's words, so he once again brought the topic back to Lu Ping and said, eldest senior brother, even Master didn't say much about what happened back then. Although Master doesn't like Lu Tianling and Zhang Tianlin, he has never made things difficult for them with regards to pills. Senior brother's actions will inevitably cause others in the sect to gossip about you. Master Xiandian fiercely glared at Master Xinjing, then said to Master Xiandian, how do you know that there isn't anything good in there? But if he doesn't have the opportunity to obtain it, then don't blame me. In any case, the opportunity has already been given to him. Reverend Xiandian was still a little hesitant, but what if he insists on taking the spirit fire? After all, he is already a true alchemy grandmaster. There is no doubt that the heaven and earth spirit fire is very important to us alchemists. If he doesn't understand the temperament of the spirit fire and is devoured by the spirit fire, then it will be big trouble. At that time, not only will Lu Tianling find trouble with us, I'm afraid the whole sect will stand on her side. If Lu Tianling goes crazy like she did back then, who in the whole sect can stop her? Speaking of what happened back then, the 3 people in the secret room were all silent. After a long time, Master Xiandian said with a trace of regret, I hope he can retreat. After a moment, Reverend Xinjing suddenly thought of something and exclaimed, ah, you put him in the space of the profound sky burning spirit fire? What if he subdued the spirit fire? Then what should I do? I was going to use this spirit fire to fuse with it and advance to the late core forging stage. Today, Reverend Xiandian didn't know why, but whenever he saw Reverend Xinjing, he would get angry. Hearing this, he said angrily, third brother, how many years have you delayed your cultivation in order to fuse with this mid-grade earth spirit fire? If you delay any longer, I'm afraid you will lose your last chance to advance to the late core forging stage. Your cultivation base is basically weak. If you forcibly fuse with a mid-grade earth spirit fire, aren't you afraid you will be burned to ashes? Reverend Xinjing was silent for a moment before saying, senior brother, if I fuse with a mid-grade earth spirit fire, after reaching the late core forging stage, I have some hope of condensing a 7th grade golden core and reaching the transcendent stage. If I fuse with a low-grade earth spirit fire, I'm afraid I will never have the chance to advance to the transcendent stage. Reverend Xiandian sighed and said, advancing to the transcendent stage is not that easy. Even if you successfully fuse with a mid-grade earth spirit fire, will you be able to fuse with a heaven spirit fire on your last attempt? If you can't fuse with a heaven spirit fire, how can you condense a 7th grade golden core? What's more, forming a 7th grade golden core doesn't necessarily mean you will be able to reach the transcendent stage. Speaking of reaching the transcendent stage, even Reverend Xiandian was a bit silent. After a while, he sighed and said, not everyone can be like Zhang Tianlin and Lu Tianling. Reverend Xiandian's words undoubtedly made the atmosphere of the 3 even more gloomy. After a moment, Reverend Xinjing's face suddenly hardened and he said, it's not that there is no way. Teacher still has a spirit forging pill. Reverend Xiandian's face became angry and he was about to explode. Reverend Xiandian saw this and hurriedly said, third brother, you can't. That spirit-forging pill was used by teacher for research. That day, third brother borrowed it from Lu Tianling. If you use this pill, how will the sect look at us in the future? Reverend Xian Yin directly scolded. Third brother, don't even think about it. Not to mention the fact that using this pill to break through to the late core forging stage is a huge waste. If you really swallow this pill, even if you fuse with a mid-grade earth spirit fire, how will you have the face to stand in the sect in the future? Even teacher will lose face, and he will not be able to raise his head in the sect. Perhaps Reverend Xian Yin felt that his words were too harsh, so he paused and said, Third brother, fusing with a low-grade earth spirit fire is not impossible in the future. When that time comes, find a way to fuse with a high-grade earth spirit fire and achieve a 6th-grade golden core. It is not impossible for you to break through to the Dharma stage. Although you will be the weakest in the Dharma stage, you will still have a few hundred years of life. With your alchemy skills, it is not impossible for you to become an alchemy grandmaster. In the future, you will also have a place in the sect. The three of them were silent for a while. At this time, they heard footsteps coming from outside the secret room again. A young man who had just entered the core forging stage walked in and looked at the three people in the secret room. Although there was a look of surprise on his face, he hurriedly said, Great uncle, teacher, fourth uncle, Uncle Shin San was ambushed by the demon clan and was seriously injured. Ancestor asked the three of you to hurry over. When the three of them heard this, their expressions changed and they hurried out. However, Reverend Xian Yin regarded this young man with great importance. As he walked, he asked, Xin Feng, what happened? Brother Xin San is a late core forging stage cultivator, and his strength is not weaker than mine. How could he be injured? This young man was the alchemy genius who had been a disciple of Reverend Xinjing, Tao Zifeng. He had also entered the core forging stage. Lu Ping stood in the middle of an empty and desolate space. He scanned the surroundings with his divine sense, but he couldn't find any signs of life. There wasn't even the slightest trace of spiritual energy in the entire space. It was like a dead land. Lu Ping was not afraid of Reverend Xian Yan's tricks. Before Lu Ping came to the alchemy pavilion, he had already prepared himself for trouble. With his teacher's black iron token in hand, the disciples of the Sky Furnace Division in the alchemy pavilion would at most hand over the worst or the most difficult inheritance lands to Lu Ping. They would not dare to play any tricks. Although this space was deathly still, it also proved that this space might be extraordinary from another aspect. Perhaps this was the most difficult inheritance lands of the same level. Reverend Xian Yin obviously wanted him to retreat. If he did not get anything, he would have a reason. When the other cultivators in the sect talked about this matter, they would probably blame Lu Ping for not having the ability. Lu Ping smiled coldly. He had already come here. If he did not see what treasures there were in this space, it would obviously not be Lu Ping's character. In this space, there was no way to distinguish the direction. Lu Ping flew forward in a random direction. He saw that the ground below was becoming more and more desolate and dry, and the temperature was gradually rising. Lu Ping flew forward for a while, but the ground had become a desert. Lu Ping knew that he was close to the target, so he could not help but slow down. At this moment, Lu Ping's flying figure came to a stop. The true essence in his body was like a lamp that had been ignited, and it quickly began to be consumed. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, but he didn't panic. His powerful divine sense allowed him to control his true essence at will. He quickly severed all connections between his true essence and his body, and at the same time, he quickly retreated. However, it was too late. In Lu Ping's divine sense, a hot aura seemed to have found a delicious glutton, and it quickly rushed towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping's expression was dignified. A dark blue true essence spread out, as if it had turned into a pool of water, covering his whole body. It seemed that Lu Ping's pure water attribute true essence made the hot aura a little apprehensive, but then the hot aura still chased after him. A palm-sized incandescent fireball suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ping, and then with a momentum that seemed to be able to burn the sky and destroy the earth, it rushed towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping's expression was a little dignified. The huge blue water shield suddenly broke away from Lu Ping's control, turned into a blue water ball, and wrapped in the opposite direction of the fireball. A strong chi-chi sound came, and the white mist in the sky dissipated, then disappeared without a trace. The dark blue water ball condensed by Lu Ping's true essence was burned by the incandescent fireball, but then Lu Ping found that there was not a trace of spiritual power in the burned water ball. Although the whole fireball was blocked by Lu Ping's true essence for a moment, the small fireball itself was far away. It seemed to be extinguished by the water ball, but after burning the water ball, it became brighter and brighter. Lu Ping's face sank, and his expression changed. No one knew what he was thinking, but after a moment, he was shocked, as if he thought of something, and exclaimed, "It's the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire." As if in response to Lu Ping's exclamation, although the incandescent fireball suffered a small loss at the beginning of the confrontation with Lu Ping, it seemed to have a big advantage in the end. In front of it, Lu Ping seemed to have become an extremely important treasure for it at this moment. The fireball flashed a few times, and once again rushed towards Lu Ping. After Lu Ping guessed the name of this flame, his expression was solemn. When he saw the fireball rushing towards him, he quickly retreated. At the same time, he threw out 2 high-grade spirit stones in his hand. He made a hand sign and cast the spirit explosion technique. The high-grade spirit stones exploded, and a thick spiritual energy spread out, causing the fireball that was about to chase after Lu Ping to suddenly stop. Then, the spiritual energy that exploded shrank in Lu Ping's divine sense and was completely absorbed by the fireball. Then, the entire palm-sized fireball suddenly expanded, and the hot aura seemed to become more intense. The fireball also became brighter, and it seemed that the whole fireball gave Lu Ping such a feeling. It was becoming more and more spirited. Lu Ping let out a long sigh of relief. Now, he could finally confirm that the palm-sized flame in front of him was the Earth middle-grade heaven spirit fire, the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire. This kind of flame had always fed on spiritual energy, and it was often born in the area of the spirit vein. It used the entire spirit vein to maintain its own spirituality. Although this kind of flame was of the Earth middle grade, it could even display the spirituality and power of the Earth upper-grade heaven spirit fire when there was enough spiritual energy. Moreover, if one did not prepare in advance, it was simply impossible to recover this kind of spirit fire. This kind of spirit fire's pursuit of spiritual energy had almost reached the limit. In the cultivation world, which cultivators' magic spells and magical abilities did not contain the spiritual energy of the heaven and earth. Even Lu Ping's water-attributed true essence and the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire were incompatible. But before Lu Ping entered the middle stage of the core forging realm, he had not smelted a heaven and earth spiritual treasure. Therefore, the quality of his true essence was slightly inferior to this earth middle-grade heaven spirit fire. Perhaps, Taoist Xian Yin wanted to use the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire to make Lu Ping retreat. At this time, Lu Ping naturally understood Taoist Xian Yan's plan, but Lu Ping did not care, and even the corners of his mouth showed a little joy. A heaven middle-grade heaven spirit fire was indeed rare and precious in the cultivation world. Its characteristic of burning the spiritual energy of the heaven and earth was almost impossible to catch and recover if a cultivator did not deliberately prepare for it. However, in this world, there was always a kind of coincidence, or luck. Just as the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire once again chased after Lu Ping floated in the air for a long time, waiting for it to arrive. At this time, after absorbing the spiritual energy of 2 high-grade spirit stones, the fireball had already expanded to the size of a human head, and its power seemed to have reached a new level. However, just as the fireball rushed towards Lu Ping, a black ball of water suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ping. The profound heavenly spirit-burning flame seemed to have sensed that this black ball of water posed a great threat to it, and it drew an arc through the air in an attempt to escape. However, how could Lu Ping allow it to escape? His hands laboriously pinched a few hand signs, and the black ball of water finally expanded, turning into a huge black water barrier that covered the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire. The black water barrier gradually shrank, and the flames on the surface of the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire constantly flickered, as if it was trembling, but it did not dare to attack the black barrier. Lu Ping's face lit up, and he did not dare to delay the hand signs. A wave of essential essence wrapped around Lu Ping's divine sense, and it invaded the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire. Amidst the explosive sounds, Lu Ping's true essence was rapidly depleted, and he felt a burning pain in his divine sense. However, he still didn't dare to relax for even a moment. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Ping's divine sense finally caught the trace of spirituality contained in the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire, and it was successfully subdued. Only then did the black water barrier turn back into a ball of black water. After checking the essential essence in his body, Lu Ping was a little speechless. This Xianyuan heavy water was worthy of being the heaviest treasure among heaven-grade spirit waters. During the time that Lu Ping subdued the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire, the essential essence in his body had been consumed by more than half to control this ball of Xianyuan heavy water. And this was because Lu Ping had almost cultivated the water control technique to the level of a minor magical power. The door to the secret underground room of the alchemy pavilion reappeared. With a large amount of essential essence consumed, a pale-faced Lu Ping stepped out, only to see that there was someone waiting for him in the secret room. When Taoist Master Xiandian saw Lu Ping's pale face, the corners of his mouth showed a slight smile, but he still opened his mouth and said, "Nephew Xianping, Senior Xiansan is seriously injured, and Master has summoned the alchemy masters of the sect for a meeting. Nephew is one of the only 5 alchemy grandmasters in the sect, and Master has specially asked you to take a look. This time, Senior Xiansen's injury is very troublesome, and I'm afraid that his cultivation will be completely destroyed." Taoist Master Xiandian's expression naturally did not escape Lu Ping's eyes. Obviously, the other party thought that he was unable to subdue the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire, and on the contrary, had exhausted his essential essence and had no choice but to leave the inheritance land. However, Lu Ping naturally would not let the news of him subduing the mysterious sky-burning spirit fire spread throughout the sect, even if this news could not be hidden for long. However, when Lu Ping heard that a late core forging cultivator from the sect had been seriously injured by the demon clan, his expression also became serious. He said, "There's no time to lose. Please lead the way, Martial Uncle Xiandian." This Martial Uncle Xiansen, Lu Ping had also heard of him. He was a person of the same generation as his own master. Although he could not be considered a genius like the 3 truths 4 spirits, his cultivation was solid, and under the heavenly Tao's reward, he had broken through to the late core forging stage. Among the sect's core forging cultivators, he was one of the most prominent figures. During the few years of the war between humans and demons, Taoist Xiansan was one of the cultivators from Zhenling's sect. He was stationed on a medium-sized island in the outer Northwest Sea, but this time, he fell into the trap of the demon race and was besieged by several demon cultivators. Although he managed to escape from death by relying on his solid cultivation base, his cultivation base was almost on the verge of collapse. On the way to Fornax Laozu's pill room, Taoist Master Xiandian roughly explained Taoist Master Xiansen's situation to Lu Ping. Lu Ping's eyebrows were also tightly knitted together. It was obvious that Taoist Master Xiansen's situation was not optimistic. Fornax Laozu's pill room was built in the back mountain of the pill refining pavilion. It was connected to Fornax Laozu's immortal cave. The moment he entered the pill room, Lu Ping once again felt the same feeling as when he entered the palace of Chonghua Palace. Just as Lu Ping entered Fornax Laozu's pill room, 10 pairs of eyes simultaneously looked towards Lu Ping. Chapter 361. As soon as Lu Ping entered Tian Lu Cauldron Great Ancestor's alchemy room, the people in the room stopped their whispering and looked at Lu Ping, who was standing behind enlightened Master Xiandian. Dozens of gazes were fixed on Lu Ping's face. The emotions contained in these gazes seemed to be vented on Lu Ping's face. Lu Ping's expression was calm, as if he didn't see these gazes. Taoist Xiandian saw Lu Ping being stared at by dozens of core forging cultivators, but he didn't show the slightest bit of stage fright. In his heart, he admired Lu Ping's courage, so he introduced him to everyone in the room. "This is Senior Sister Lu Tianling's 9th disciple, our sect's new alchemy master, Lu Xianping." Then Taoist Xiandian turned his head to Lu Ping, and introduced an old man who looked to be in his 50s. Nephew Xinping, this is my teacher, Fornax Laozu. Lu Ping respectfully bowed and said, Disciple Lu Xinping greets great ancestor Fornax. Fornax Laozu's face was resolute and looked very serious, but he was very kind to Lu Ping. Not bad. Sit first. Xian San has suffered a great disaster, and his injuries are strange and unpredictable. It is time for everyone to help. You are one of the few alchemy masters in our sect. Take a look at Xian San's injuries first, and then tell us what you think. Lu Ping heard this and looked at a calm, middle-aged cultivator who was resting with his eyes closed. The middle-aged cultivator seemed to sense Lu Ping's gaze. He slowly opened his eyes and smiled at Lu Ping. Lu Ping quickly gave a slight bow. This middle-aged cultivator was Sage Xian San, who was besieged by the Demon Clan cultivators and was severely injured. There were two cultivators standing behind Taoist Master Xian Senator. One of them was a core forging Taoist, while the other was a peak blood condensation realm cultivator. However, their facial features bore some resemblance to Taoist Master Xian Senator. They were probably Taoist Master Xian Sen's disciple or relative. When they saw Lu Ping looking at them, their eyes were filled with hope and pleading. Lu Ping released his spiritual will and began to carefully examine the injuries on Taoist Xian Sen's body. When the other alchemists in the pill room saw that Lu Ping had started to investigate, they began to discuss Sage Xian Sen's injuries again. As they spoke, they shook their heads and sighed. Clearly, Sage Xian Sen's injuries caused many of the cultivators present to feel troubled. When the two cultivators behind Taoist Master Xian Sen heard the discussions of the alchemists in the pill room, their expressions became increasingly ugly. However, they did not dare to open their mouths and ask about Taoist Master Xian Sen's injuries. They could only look at Lu Ping, who was currently examining Taoist Master Xian Sen's injuries. Taoist Master Xian Sen still had a calm expression on his face. He sat there cross-legged as if his mind was elsewhere. The discussions of the alchemists in the pill room did not seem to affect him in the slightest. Lu Ping's spiritual will carefully examine Taoist Master Xian Sen's internal injuries. The expression on his face became more and more serious. However, when he carefully examined Taoist Master Xian Sen, he seemed to have a strange expression. After a while, Lu Ping, who had finished his examination, opened his eyes. As he pondered, he listened to the discussions of the alchemists in the pill room. Today, the alchemists that Tianlu Laozu had invited to the pill room were all Taoist masters at the core forging stage. Even though the majority of them had not reached the level of alchemy grandmaster, their knowledge was not below Lu Ping's. As Lu Ping calmly listened, he was able to hear some new opinions. The ancestor of the Forsaken Cauldron Kingdom heard that most of the discussion was about how to lighten and maintain his injuries, but not a single word was mentioned about spiritual master Xian Sen's recovery. He couldn't help but feel a little unhappy and said, Today's discussion is not only about disciple Xian Sen's injuries, but more importantly, to restore his cultivation. According to your opinions, disciple Xian Sen's life has been saved, but his cultivation is gone. Without the cultivation of the core forging stage, with his current age, how much longer does he have to live? Suddenly, spiritual master Xian San said, Martial uncle, don't blame this junior brother. I know his injuries better than anyone else. I didn't think that there would be someone in the demon race who could cultivate such a strange technique that could break the blood vessels in his body. If I hadn't taken out my golden core to block the attack, I'm afraid my golden core would have been shattered and I would have lost my life long ago. Spiritual Master Xian San said, Martial uncle, don't blame this junior brother. I know his injuries better than anyone else. I didn't think that there would be someone in the demon race who could cultivate such a strange technique. Taoist Master Xian Sen's words caused the expressions of the cultivators in the pill room to become much better. However, Tianlu Laozu snorted and said, Although our sect has more than 100 core forging stage cultivators, how many core forging stage cultivators are there in total? I, Zhenling, have not reached the point where I can casually lose a core forging stage cultivator. Now is not the time to hide anything. If you have any trump cards in your hands, even if it is only a guess, say it. Don't be afraid of being wrong. Is there a worse result than having your cultivation destroyed? As for things like spirit herbs, there is no need to worry about them. With Tianlu Laozu's guarantee, The cultivators in the pill room relaxed and began to speak freely. However, after a series of treatment methods were rejected by Tianlu Laozu and the other alchemy masters, the atmosphere in the pill room became quiet again. The number of alchemists who spoke also decreased. After a moment, Taoist Master Xian Yin said, "Teacher, junior brother Xian Sen's injuries are too strange. The blood vessels in his body are almost completely destroyed. Right now, he can no longer withstand the impact of the medicinal power. If the medicinal power is too strong, I'm afraid that before his injuries can recover, the core space will first collapse." The alchemists in the pill room nodded. The cultivator sitting next to Taoist Master Xian Yin also said, "The most important thing right now is to restore the blood vessels in senior brother Xian Sen's body. As long as the blood vessels are connected, when Martial Uncle Tianlu refines the Zhongding pill, there may be a chance that his cultivation will recover. But right now, the most difficult thing is to connect the blood vessels. The magical power of the monster clan is really strange. Senior brother Xian Sen's blood vessels are like paper, breaking with one touch." At this time, Lu Ping also guessed the identity of this cultivator. This person should be the sect's other alchemy master, Taoist Master Xian Yu. Although Taoist Master Xian Yu was an alchemy master, he was not Tianlu Laozu's disciple. Instead, he became an alchemy master on his own. He opened his own branch in Tianling Mountain, but he also received a lot of careful guidance from Tianlu Laozu. Just as Lu Ping lowered his head in thought, he suddenly heard a strange voice suddenly ring out. "Isn't martial nephew Lu Xinping also known as the sect's alchemy master? Why are you sitting there and not saying anything? Even if you can't do anything, no one will say anything. After all, everyone knows about senior brother Xian Sen's injuries." Lu Ping turned his head in shock. Who else could it be other than Taoist Master Xinjing? But his words were really not suitable for the occasion. It was almost equivalent to saying that no one present could do anything about Taoist Master Xian Sen's injuries. Not only did the expressions of Taoist Master Xian Sen's two disciples change greatly, the disciples who looked similar to Taoist Master Xian Sen also showed a trace of anger on their faces. Even the other alchemists in the pill room didn't look good. They only didn't act out because of Tianlu Laozu. Tianlu Laozu's expression darkened. Taoist Master Xian Yin turned around and fiercely glared at Taoist Master Xian Jing. "Third brother, what nonsense are you talking about?" At this time, Taoist Master Xian Jing also seemed to know that he had said something wrong. For a moment, he was embarrassed and didn't open his mouth again. However, everyone's gaze was still shifted to Lu Ping. Tianlu Laozu also seemed to want to test Lu Ping. He also said, "In that case, Xin Ping, you also say your opinion. Don't be afraid of saying something wrong." In fact, after Lu Ping came to the pill room, Lu Ping could still feel a kind of contempt from the people in the pill room. His own alchemy skills were indeed high enough, but Taoist Master Xian Sen's condition wasn't something that could be cured with just high alchemy skills. More importantly, he had to find a suitable treatment method. The time that Lu Ping had spent cultivating was probably less than the time that an ordinary alchemist in the pill room took to advance to the core forging stage. How much could he see in the world of cultivation with decades of experience? In this kind of situation, the level of alchemy skills wouldn't be of much use. Lu Ping pondered for a moment, then slowly opened his mouth under Taoist Master Xian Jing's ridiculing gaze. He said, "Xin Yu Shishu is right. If Master Xian San wants to recover, the key is not cultivation, but first of all, it is to nourish the blood vessels in his body so that they can withstand the impact of the power of the alchemy pills. Only then can he try to restore his cultivation." As soon as Lu Ping's voice fell, Taoist Master Xian Jing sneered and said, picking up the words of others, "No creativity at all." This time, not only was Lu Ping a little annoyed, but the other people in the pill room were also a little surprised. Tianlu Laozu coldly said, "Xian Jing, if you have any creativity, why don't you say it now? Let me, as your teacher, gain some knowledge." Tianlu Laozu's words caused Taoist Master Xian Jing's expression to change. He lowered his head and didn't speak anymore. Lu Ping, however, noticed something from his scattered gaze. Lu Ping was annoyed, but with Tianlu Laozu's scolding, he no longer paid attention to Taoist Master Xian Jing's words. Instead, he paused and turned to look at Tianlu Laozu. He said, I wonder if Grand Uncle has heard of spirit water nourishing pill? Spirit water nourishing pill? What alchemy technique is this, using water to refine pills? I'm afraid that won't work. Alchemy always uses fire. If there is no spiritual fire, how can the spiritual power and medicinal power contained in the spirit grass be stimulated and purified? It won't work, it won't work. When the many alchemists in the pill room heard Lu Ping's words, they all shook their heads, but no one opened their mouth to mock him. They only denied Lu Ping's words. Taoist Master Xian Jing's face was full of ridicule, as if there was no need to open his mouth to refute. Only Taoist Master Xian Yin and Taoist Master Xian Yu, who sat below Tianlu Laozu, looked at each other. They seemed to be deep in thought, as if they had heard of Lu Ping's spirit water nourishing pill. Tianlu Laozu looked at Lu Ping with some surprise. He thought for a moment, then said, "In the alchemy world, there is indeed a legend of using spiritual water to refine pills. In reality, this kind of alchemy technique does exist." The old man once collected a few recipes for spirit water nourishing pill in his early years, but unfortunately, this kind of alchemy technique is very different from normal alchemy techniques. It is also much more difficult, and it takes too long to refine. Moreover, it can only refine 1 or 2 pills at a time. Normal alchemists usually train in wood and fire attribute techniques, so it is incomparably difficult to use spiritual water. This is probably the reason why this kind of alchemy technique is difficult to popularize in the world of cultivation. So the old man only played around with these recipes for a while on a whim. After that, he no longer paid any attention to it. Naturally, no one dared to question Tianlu Laozu's words. Many alchemists in the alchemy room did not think that the spirit water nourishing pills technique that Lu Ping spoke of really existed in the world of cultivation. They were all incomparably shocked, and the contempt they previously had for Lu Ping also lessened slightly. Tianlu Laozu closed his eyes and thought for a moment, then said, "If we use the spirit water nourishing pill, perhaps there really is some chance." Although there are many drawbacks to using the spirit water nourishing pill to refine pills, the medicinal properties of the pills refined are the most mild. It is indeed much more effective for the recovery of cultivators than other pills. However, this kind of alchemy technique has almost been lost in the world of cultivation. More importantly, where can we find the recipe for the spirit water nourishing pill to treat Xian Sen's injuries? Tianlu Laozu's words not only caused the 2 disciples behind Xian San to light up with joy, even Xian San opened his eyes in surprise. However, the little bit of hope that had just risen in everyone's hearts was gradually extinguished. At this moment, Lu Ping took out a jade scroll from his storage ring and handed it to Tianlu Laozu, saying, "Uncle Master, please take a look at this pill recipe. Is it beneficial for Xian Sen's injuries?" Once again, the Fornax Cauldron ancestor looked at Lu Ping in surprise. He then took the jade scroll from Lu Ping's hands. In just a few moments, the Fornax Cauldron ancestor had read through all the pellet recipes in the jade scroll. With Lu Ping's attainments in alchemy, the Fornax Cauldron ancestor could tell at a glance that the pellet recipes were the best choice for enlightened Master Xian Sen's injuries. Spirit water nourishing pill. What is spirit water nourishing pill? If we follow this method, there is indeed a high chance that Xian Sen's bloodline will recover. Tianlu Laozu's words made everyone in the pill room excited. The 2 disciples behind Xian Sen were wild with joy. For Sky Cauldron Forefather returned the jade scroll to Lu Ping and said with a smile, "I forgot that teacher Xian Ping, Tianling, that little girl also cultivates a water elemental cultivation method. Since you're able to take out this recipe, I presume you've also studied and comprehended the spirit water pill nurturing technique? Water attribute cultivation method? Alchemy Grandmaster." Tianlu Laozu's words once again shocked many alchemists in the pill room. Not only did Lu Ping not cultivate a wood or fire attribute cultivation method, but he also cultivated the most taboo water attribute cultivation method in the alchemy world. Moreover, he had become an alchemy grandmaster at such a young age. For a moment, the alchemists who looked down on and envied Lu Ping looked at Lu Ping with admiration. Even Xian Yan, who didn't have a good impression of Lu Ping, shook his head with a bitter smile. No one knew what he was thinking. Lu Ping replied humbly, I've indeed concocted this medicinal pellet before and treated a cultivator in the Eastern Sea who suffered the same injuries as Junior Marshal Uncle Xian Senator. However, that cultivator was only a peak blood condensation realm cultivator at the time, and the Spirit Water Meridian Nourishing Pellet was only a half-step core forging medicinal pellet. Junior Marshal Uncle Xian San was, after all, a late core forging cultivator. I'm afraid this medicinal pellet might not be effective enough. When Tianlu Laozu heard that Lu Ping had treated a cultivator in the East Sea who had the same injury as Xian San, he frowned slightly. Xian San, Xian Yu, Xian Yin, and the other late core forging realm cultivators glanced at each other. No one knew what they were communicating. After hearing Lu Ping's words, Tianlu Laozu laughed and said, "No worries, I have already seen this pill recipe. Even if it cannot completely restore Xian Sen's bloodline, it can at least help him recover half of his injury. When that time comes, I will refine the Bell Cauldron pill. Even if Xian San has no hope of entering the transcendent stage in the future, at least his cultivation will be restored. It is much better than having his cultivation destroyed." Xian San also smiled and said, "Being able to restore his cultivation is already a blessing from the heavens. As for entering the transcendent stage, even if I am not injured, I may not have a 20% chance of success. Disciple Lu, feel free to refine it." When Lu Ping heard Laozu mention the Bell Cauldron pill, his eyebrows twitched involuntarily, but he quickly recovered and said, "I will do my best." Tianlu Laozu waved his hand carelessly and said, "You are now a great alchemist. This Spirit Water Meridian Nourishing Pill has a miraculous effect on cultivators. If you can study it and raise it to the core forging stage, not only will Xian Sen's injury be healed, but taking the Bell Cauldron pill will also be a blessing in disguise. It is not impossible for him to break through to the 8th level of the core forging stage. The war between the humans and the demons is getting more and more intense. With this pill, I, Zhenling, will be able to preserve some of my strength in the war against the demons. Perhaps my chances of winning will increase. Xian Sen will be under my care for the time being. His injury will not worsen for the next 3 months. Think about it yourself and see if you can succeed. Create a new type of pill." Lu Ping was a little shocked by Sky Cauldron Great Ancestor's words. But then he remembered that he was already a Grandmaster Alchemist and had the ability to create new medicinal pellets and recipes. In the alchemy world, if a Grandmaster Alchemist couldn't create a brand new core forging grade medicinal pellet and pass it down to the next generation, he would be called a fake Grandmaster. After Taoist Xian Sen's matter was resolved, the originally heavy atmosphere in the alchemy room became much more relaxed. After leaving the alchemy pavilion, the news that Taoist Xian Sen's injury was no longer a problem immediately spread among the high-level cultivators of Tianling Mountain. At the same time, the news that the new great alchemist Lu Xinping had mastered an alchemy technique that was almost lost in the alchemy world and had great healing effects on cultivators who had almost lost their cultivation was also quickly spread among the high-level cultivators of Tianling Mountain. The originally gloomy atmosphere in Zhenling due to Taoist Xian Sen's injury suddenly became lively. Unknowingly, Lu Ping had already risen to an extremely high position in the sect. At this time, Lu Ping still hadn't realized the potential value of the Meridian Nourishing Pill. He was still fascinated by the idea of creating a new type of pill for the core forging stage that Tianlu Laozu had proposed in the alchemy room. In a few days, it would be the day that Hu Lily would be opening her cave. After that, it would be the True Spirit Monastery's competition. Lu Ping had already received an invitation, and he had also promised Shi Lingling that he would demonstrate his alchemy techniques to the monastery disciples. After that, Lu Ping had a big plan in mind. After that, he would... Chapter 362. A few days after Hu Lily opened her cave residence, the True Spirit Side Courtyard's competition would begin. Therefore, Yao Yong, Du Feng, Shi Lingling, Jizi Xuan, Yinzi Chu, and the others returned to Tianling Mountain a few days earlier. This was the second time since Lu Ping returned to the North Sea that his friends gathered together. It was inevitable that they would talk about their experiences over the years. Lu Ping listened quietly from the side and gained a better understanding of Zhenling's current situation. So the monster race has deliberately intensified their attacks on the sea near our sect in recent years? Yes, The monster race's previous attacks on our sect were mainly concentrated in the sea around the southeast of Kuan Island. However, after suffering a big loss during Tianling Laozu's Dharma Manifestation Conference, the monster race's attacks on our sect have obviously intensified. Now in the northwest, east, and southeast of the Outer Sea, our sect can only barely maintain a line of small islands. Almost all the small islands have been abandoned and have fallen. Lu Ping listened to Ji Zixuan's words and could not help but look at Chen Lian. Seeing Chen Lian also nod, Lu Ping knew that Ji Zixuan was talking about something important and began to plan again in his heart. Zhong Jin noticed that Lu Ping was listening to the others talk about their experiences over the years. At the same time, he had a thoughtful look on his face as if he was plotting something. Zhong Jin asked, "Junior brother Lu, what are your plans for the time being?" As soon as Zhong Jin's words came out, everyone's attention immediately turned to Lu Ping. Ma Yufu also said with a smile, "With junior brother Lu's identity as an alchemy master, the sect may not be willing to send junior brother Lu out. Most likely, he will stay on Tianling Mountain." Recently, it was said that junior brother Lu has a secret alchemy technique that has miraculous effects on high-level cultivators. It has even been confirmed by Tianlu Laozu. It is said that martial uncle Xian Sen's cultivation was seriously injured and on the verge of collapse because of this alchemy technique, so the sect will not let junior brother Lu go out to take charge. Hearing that his words were reasonable, everyone agreed, but their eyes were still looking at him, wanting to hear his thoughts. Only Yao Yong murmured, "Pity, pity, if you don't go to the Outer Sea to fight the monster race, I'm afraid junior brother Lu's ranking on the North Sea rookie list will be surpassed. That will be very bad." Shi Lingling said snappily, "Is that ranking really that important? I think the person who came up with this ranking has ulterior motives. Because of the order of the ranking, how many people on the list have fought each other? In the end, they didn't die in the battle with the monster race, but died in the hands of their own people." Yao Yong chuckled, as if he was a little afraid of Shi Lingling, and said no more. Chun Lian had some guesses about Lu Ping's plan. Seeing Lu Ping smiling without saying anything, he said, "He's not a person who knows his place. Ever since he returned from the East Sea, when has he ever been peaceful?" Everyone nodded. After Lu Ping returned to the North Sea, he first defeated Li Xinliang, then made a name for himself at the Dharma Manifestation Assembly of Tianling Laozu, and then defeated Xianling sect's sword cultivator Ouyang Weijian. Then on Xianqi Island, he single-handedly resisted the attack of 4 core forging stage demon cultivators and killed 2 of them, rescued Master Chu Xuanqing, went into seclusion for 3 years, and made a name for himself as an alchemy grandmaster. Then, he cured Master Xianxin, whose cultivation was on the verge of collapse. Those were all major events that shook the sect. It could be said that among the high-level cultivators of the Xinling sect, Lu Ping's fame was even catching up to Chu Xuanqing, Guo Xianshan, and the other veteran late and peak core forging stage cultivators. Lu Ping smiled and said, "Recently, I have indeed been planning something. When the time comes, I'm afraid I'll need everyone's help." Yao Yong chuckled and said, "Don't worry, my brother's business is my business. When the time comes, I'll definitely go." Du Feng and the others also nodded and agreed. Seeing that everyone was not even sure about anything, Lu Ping opened his mouth and agreed. He was quite moved in his heart. In the end, it was Ji Zixuan who took the lead to ask, "What exactly is it? You should at least tell us first, right? It's better for us to be prepared." Lu Ping smiled slightly. Just as he was about to tell them about his plan, he heard a commotion in the reception room outside the cave mansion. Lu Ping frowned and heard a rather sharp voice coming in. "Fourth junior sister, I heard that you're going to open a cave. Look, this cave mansion is deserted. Even after advancing to the core forging stage, it's just like this. Look, isn't it because of us senior sisters who can come to support you?" At this time, Hu Lily's voice also came in, saying, "Eldest senior sister, second senior sister, third senior sister, and junior sisters are here. Come in and sit. This little sister's cave mansion has just been opened. Everything is simple and crude. Right now, the disciples still have some cleaning up to do. I'll have to trouble senior sisters to bear with me for a while." Bear with it, of course. Junior sister is now a core forging Taoist master. Our teacher, Taoist Master Xian Chun, is second only to eldest senior sister. Junior sister is the second disciple to open a cave mansion. Teacher has taken a liking to us, and we have a benefactor to help us. How can we not bear with it? Although the tone of the person who spoke this time was not as sharp as the previous person's, there was a tinge of jealousy in his words. There was a hidden meaning in his words, and it was full of sarcasm. At this time, a voice came over. All right, everyone sit down first. Although fourth junior sister's cave mansion is not yet finished, we are all fellow disciples. There is no need to fuss about this. This woman's voice carried a trace of majesty, and her words sounded fair. Hypocritical. This voice was familiar to everyone. It was Zhang Jie, who was the best friend of Hu Lili, who spoke. After Lu Ping and the others arrived, Hu Lili's cave dwelling was still unfinished. Since they were good friends, they didn't mind it, so they first went to Hu Lili's cultivation room to chat. Zhang Jie stayed in the cave dwelling with Hu Lili, instructing the disciples to clean up the cave dwelling. Although Zhang Jie's cultivation had not broken through to the core forging stage, she had a fiery and straightforward temperament. She often interacted with Hu Lili, and she knew that Hu Lili was favored by her teacher, Taoist Master Xian Chun, because of her talent in array formations. In addition, Hu Lili's cultivation had caught up with her in recent years, and she had unexpectedly become the second disciple under Taoist Master Xian Chun to break through to the core forging stage. Because of this, Hu Lili was usually hated by her senior sisters, and she was often isolated by them. After Hu Lili broke through to the core forging stage, she was anxious to open a cave mansion. Zhang Jie's words were like a small flame that had been thrown into a pot of boiling oil. The subtle atmosphere suddenly changed, and the sharp voice from before rang out, "Stupid girl, what did you say? See if I don't tear your mouth apart." Zhang Jie was also at the peak of the blood condensation realm, and behind her were Lu Ping and the others. Naturally, she would not be threatened by such words. Her fiery temper flared up, and she immediately said, "Do you think I'm afraid of you? What are you going to do if I say it?" The gentle voice from before rang out again, "Fourth junior sister, this friend of yours is too rude. How can you casually associate with such a person? Since junior sister has broken through to the core forging stage, there will naturally be people who will try to curry favor with you. Junior sister, don't be blinded by such people." Hu Lili's indifferent voice rang out, "Second senior sister, you worry too much. I don't need second senior sister's advice on how to associate with people. Junior sister Zhang is my best friend, and her words are my words." Good. The sharp voice from before suddenly became louder. "Hu Lili, I didn't expect you to say such words. Do you really not care about your relationship with your sect? Today, I will teach this girl a lesson. Let's see if you dare to attack me. Don't think that just because you've broken through to the core forging stage, you can ride roughshod over us." The sharp voice was flustered and exasperated, but in the end, it was still afraid of Hu Lili's identity as a core forging enlightened master. The voice from before, which sounded just and fair, should be the eldest senior sister who had just broken through to the core forging stage. This time, her tone also changed. "Fourth junior sister, how can you say such words? It seems like you really have your eyes on the top of your head. I heard that you're fawning over a disciple of Fa Xiang Laozu. No wonder you don't care about your fellow disciples. Third brother, if you want to teach this girl a lesson, I want to see who dares to stop you." As soon as the voice fell, a fluctuation of spiritual qi came from Hu Lili's immortal's cave. Obviously, the two sides had reached a point of mutual hostility. Hu Lili's senior sisters were deliberately causing trouble for her. Just as the eldest senior sister's voice fell, a cold snort suddenly resounded in the immortal's cave. The three people who had just spoken felt as if they were struck by lightning. Second senior sister and third senior sister's legs suddenly weakened, and they almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, the other senior sisters behind them held them up. The eldest senior sister who had just broken through to the core forging stage swayed, and she retreated 2 or 3 steps. Her face suddenly became deathly pale, and her face was full of fear. In the cultivation room, Shi Lingling looked at Lu Ping's gloomy face and said, "Let's go out and see what's going on." Everyone stood up, including Lu Ping. Yao Yong slightly sighed and said, "This level of spiritual sense is really unreasonable." Lu Ping was startled, but Yao Yong had already walked out. His gait was like a dragon or a tiger, and his face was dignified and domineering. Yao Yong would only smile mischievously when he was with his friends. Normally, he was also one of the few talented cultivators in Zhenling, so he was very careful about his image. Now, Yao Yong's bearing was the image that everyone knew of him. Back in Flying Cloud's grotto heaven, Lu Ping had obtained a high-grade divine sense cultivation inheritance from a deceased senior cultivator. Thus, his mastery of the divine sense and its usage had improved significantly. Although the cold snort was directed at Hu Lily's 3 senior martial sisters outside the cave dwelling, the people inside the cave dwelling were also shocked by Lu Ping's snort. By then, outside the grotto mansion, Hu Lily's fellow disciples had fallen silent. They could already hear the sounds of footsteps coming out from the grotto mansion. There were 7 personal disciples under Sage Xuanzhen's tutelage and a considerable number of novitiate disciples. In addition to the personal disciples, there were also tens of novitiate disciples. Our sect's most promising candidate to become a master artificer. However, just as the female disciple finished speaking, the other female disciple exclaimed, "The true spirit heroes, it's the true spirit heroes, Taoist Master Xian Xian and Taoist Master Xian Chu." What? Were they the true spirit heroes? The 2 of them joined forces to kill a 4th-level core forging demon cultivator, then ambushed a 5th-level core forging demon cultivator, heavily injuring him, and then joined forces to defeat Ouyang Weijian. They're ranked 37th and 38th on the rookie ranking? Ji Zixuan turned his head and helplessly said to Yin Zichu beside him, "It was originally the true spirit 3 heroes, but that guy disappeared in the Eastern Sea for several years, so the 3 heroes can only be the 2 heroes." Yin Zichu's face was expressionless. Ji Zixuan shook his head and said no more. At this time, the disciples who came to attend Hu Lily's opening ceremony began to look at eldest senior sister with sympathy. As for second senior sister and third senior sister, they had already gone from being in a daze to being in a daze. Lu Ping was the last one to walk out, and the cave dwelling immediately fell silent. This is Water Sword Immortal. Great Sword Technique. Pillmaster. Tian Ling Laozu's 9th direct disciple. So he's the one who's close to senior sister Hu. Lu Ping's appearance in the cave caused the disciples who came to celebrate Hu Lily's opening ceremony to boil over. It was also the last straw that broke the eldest senior sister's back. Eldest senior sister's body went limp, and she fell onto the chair next to her. At this time, her heart was in a mess. A cultivator's state of mind had been broken, and too many impurities had been left in it. In the future, it would be difficult for her to improve her cultivation. With so many Zhenling elite disciples gathered together, they could even be said to be Zhenling's hope. Their combined weight was enough to make even Zhenling's Dharma idol, Laozu, had to treat them with caution. Unexpectedly, Hu Lily's friends were all so monstrous. Just as the blood condensation disciples in the cave were excitedly pointing at Lu Ping and the others, a crisp voice called out, "Ninth senior brother, 9th senior brother. I heard that senior sister Lily is opening her cave today. Why didn't you call me?" When the voice came, it was still a few hundred feet away. By the time the words, "Why didn't you call me?" were finished, the 2 girls had already rushed into Hu Lily's cave. The one in front was about 17 or 18 years old, dressed in a palace dress. She was holding the hand of a 12 or 13-year-old girl. Who else could it be but Jiang Xinxian and Lu Qin, another 2 core forging realm enlightened masters, and they were so young. Everyone was shocked, and eldest senior sister almost fainted. This 17 or 18-year-old girl's status was not inferior to Shirlingling's. Her parents were both Dharma idol Laozu. Ji Zixuan looked at Lu Qin with a glint in his eyes. Yin Zichu's eyes were fixed on Lu Qin the moment she entered the cave. Yao Yong and Chen Lian also felt something, and a jade pendant on Shirlingling's waist started moving without any wind. At this time, Lu Qin was like a little hen whose nest had exploded. Her eyes were fixed on Ji Zixuan and the others, and a blazing white flame flashed in her eyes. The palace dress she was wearing, which was similar to Jiang Xuanxuan's, suddenly began to change between green and red. All of this naturally couldn't be hidden from Lu Ping. Lu Ping smiled and said, "Little junior sister has been hiding in the Xiaoyao mansion these days. How can I find her?" After that, he waved his hand to call Lu Qiner over and introduced her to everyone. "This is my sworn sister, Lu Qiner. She is little Qingwan that everyone has seen before." Qiner, quickly greet big brothers and sisters. As soon as Lu Qiner came in front of Lu Ping, the previously heroic little girl became shy and said in a crisp voice, "Qiner greets big brothers and sisters." The stagnant atmosphere suddenly disappeared. Shi Lingling was a little surprised and said, "She is actually little Qingwan. She has actually changed. She has grown so big, but I didn't recognize her just now." The people in the cave naturally didn't know that Lu Qiner's identity as a beast cultivator almost caused them to attack. However, eldest senior sister's eyes flashed with a trace of brilliance, but she didn't say anything. Chapter 363. The heaven and earth spiritual qi around Tingtao's immortal cave seemed to rise and fall along with the sound of the distant waves. Wave after wave of heaven and earth spiritual qi gathered towards the cave. After a long time, the sound of the distant waves seemed to die down, and the heaven and earth spiritual qi around Tingtao's immortal cave also slowly calmed down. In the cultivation room of Tingtao's immortal cave, a trace of disappointment flashed across Lu Ping's calm face the moment he opened his eyes, but it soon disappeared. Lu Ping casually placed a jade crystal bowl in front of him into his storage artifact. The jade crystal bowl was half filled with a faint blue water, and then looked at the empty jade crystal bottle on the ground. Lu Ping somewhat helplessly stood up and counted the time. This time he had unexpectedly cultivated for 5 days, and the True Spirit Courtyard's grand competition was about to begin. After returning from Hu Lily's immortal cave that day, Lu Ping had inadvertently heard the faint sound of the waves coming from the distant sea. Unconsciously, he had become infatuated with it. By the time he recovered, he immediately discovered that this was an excellent opportunity for him to break through to the mid-core forging stage. At this time, whatever grand competition, whatever plans he had all been thrown to the back of his mind. Lu Ping immediately took out a jade crystal bowl from his storage ring. Inside was the azure wave water that Lu Ping had obtained from the Kuan fish demon Taoist Kongliang. At the same time, he also took out a few high-quality core forging cultivation pills that he had refined in the past few days, to be able to directly use an earth spiritual treasure to break through to the mid-core forging stage, which one of them wasn't an outstanding elite in the cultivation world. Although the azure wave water wasn't too outstanding among the earth's spiritual treasures, it was superior in quantity. Taoist Kongliang was also a cultivator with extremely profound true essence. If it weren't for the fact that Lu Ping had used his life Genshin Grand Formation, he really wouldn't have been able to do anything to Kongliang. With Lu Ping's current cultivation base and the degree of true essence in his body, this large bowl of azure wave water was just barely enough for Lu Ping to refine his golden core and advance to the mid-core forging stage. Unfortunately, Lu Ping still wasn't able to grasp this opportunity. Feeling the true essence in his body becoming increasingly mellow, Lu Ping wryly smiled and consoled himself. This could be considered a harvest. At least after this attack, his foundation had once again undergone a baptism, and his cultivation base had also accumulated a bit more. Looking at the Zhenling side courtyard in front of him, Lu Ping's heart was filled with a few more emotions. Inadvertently, Lu Ping hadn't returned to the Zhenling side courtyard for more than a decade. He really had a feeling that things remained the same, but the people had changed. Today's annual competition of the Zhenling side courtyard could be said to be the largest and most solemn one in the past few decades. Before Lu Ping entered the side courtyard, his divine sense had already entered it. Lu Ping casually hid in the sky above the side courtyard. Looking at the already expanded side courtyard and the densely packed crowd inside, Lu Ping couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. In recent years, it seemed that the number of reserve cultivators in the Zhenling side courtyard had increased a lot. From time to time, a beam of light would flash across the sky, and every time it landed on the side courtyard, it would cause a burst of cheers from the side courtyard's disciples. The Zhenling side courtyard was no longer only used to train blood-refining realm disciples. Not only did the number of blood-refining realm disciples increase, but even early blood condensation realm disciples were also forced to learn from core forging realm enlightened masters for a year in the side courtyard before they were allowed to travel alone. Although there were many core forging realm cultivators in the side courtyard, for most blood-refining realm disciples and even blood condensation realm disciples, core forging realm cultivators were still a mysterious existence that they could only look up to. Moreover, enlightened Master Zhenling who participated in today's competition had just broken through to early core forging realm in recent years. They were the true rising stars of Zhenling, and many of them were famous on the North Sea rookie list. These people were all young faces, and many of them looked as if they were on par with blood-refining realm disciples. Suddenly, a huge fireball fell from the sky, and the bright red flames seemed to burn the entire sky red. Amidst the exclamations of the crowd, the fireball ruthlessly smashed into the side courtyard. A faint smile appeared on Lu Ping's face, and he thought to himself, this guy used to be a calm person, but now he likes to be in the limelight more and more. He even said that he wanted to find a disciple in the side courtyard to satisfy his addiction of being a master. With such an entrance, I wonder how many disciples will pay attention to him. Sure enough, just as the huge fireball was about to hit the side courtyard like a meteor, an earth-shaking laughter rang out, and the entire fireball strangely stopped. Immediately after, roar rang out, and a fiery red tiger jumped out of the fireball, startling the surrounding cultivators. At this moment, the crowd could clearly see that there was a person riding on the back of the tiger. His face was full of majesty and determination. If it wasn't Yao Yong, who could it be? It's Enlightened Master Flaming Tiger. Enlightened Master Flaming Tiger. Just like that day in front of Hu Lily's cave, the crowd all looked at Yao Yong with looks of surprise and worship. Yao Yong seemed to enjoy this feeling of being admired, and he bowed to Daoist Xinyuan, who was next to him. Then he greeted Ji Zishuan and the others who had already arrived, and his eyes began to look at the disciples in the side courtyard. Does Daoist Xinyuan want to satisfy his addiction of being a master? Lu Ping was somewhat surprised. In fact, this time, Daoist Xinyuan of the Zhenling side courtyard had invited almost all the core forging stage Daoists under the age of 100. Naturally, Daoist Xinyuan had received instructions from the Zhenling side courtyard. Before this, Lu Ping had also been reminded by his teacher to go to the side courtyard's grand competition, and if there was a disciple that caught his eye, he could also take that disciple in the future, even if it was just an honorary disciple. In recent years, Zhenling's development had become much faster. Thanks to the accumulation of the beast tide, and the fact that Zhenling was able to avoid the main force of the beast tide, the advantages of Zhenling's side courtyard were gradually revealed as time passed. However, there were also problems that came with it. More and more mid-blood condensation cultivators were qualified to take a master, but the number of core forging stage Daoists in Zhenling was far from enough to satisfy the requirements of these disciples. This was also one of the reasons why the Zhenling sect decided to let a portion of core forging stage Daoists into the Zhenling side courtyard to give lectures. These core forging stage Daoist lectures were not only aimed at the blood refining and early blood condensation disciples in the side courtyard, but also the mid-blood condensation disciples who didn't have a master yet. Even some late blood condensation cultivators were attracted by the core forging stage Daoist lectures. After all, the core forging stage Daoist lectures were the backbone of the cultivation world. The huge gap between the core forging stage and the blood condensation stage made the lectures of the core forging stage Daoist incomparably attractive to blood condensation cultivators. The Zhenling side courtyard didn't have any restrictions on the entry and exit of these cultivators. As long as they were Zhenling's disciples, they would be allowed to enter. This year's courtyard competition was held because the Zhenling side courtyard had been nurturing more and more outstanding disciples. More importantly, the Zhenling side courtyard wanted Lu Ping and the other core forging stage cultivators to be able to accept disciples in advance. This would relieve the pressure on the Zhenling side courtyard. In order to allow core forging stage cultivators to focus on cultivation, Zhenling stipulated that only core forging stage cultivators who had reached the third level of core forging would have the right to accept disciples. Lu Ping was already qualified. This was also the reason why Taoist Profound Miao reminded him last time in the Heaven Spirit Palace. However, based on the current situation, it seemed that the Zhenling side courtyard would be pressured by the blood condensation stage cultivators and might have to relax the standards for core forging stage Taoists to accept disciples. However, even now, Lu Ping didn't have any concept of accepting disciples. Things like passing on the Tao was still very far away from him. In truth, Lu Ping still had a trace of pride in his heart. With his divine sense, he had already discovered that there were already several core forging stage cultivators hiding in the sky. However, everyone was very reserved with each other. Yao Yang's entrance had been too shocking, and no one wanted to lose the limelight. Under this contradiction, everyone had a tacit understanding with each other. One by one, they used their respective movement techniques to fly towards the Zhenling side courtyard. Everyone enjoyed the sincere cheers of the Zhenling side courtyard disciples. Dressed in a plain long robe, Lu Ping still looked like an ordinary scholar from a poor family. Unbeknownst to others, he walked into the Zhenling side hall that he hadn't seen for many years. The courtyard's plaza had doubled in size. The original 9 arenas had been replaced by 12 arenas. Lu Ping strolled through the crowd of cultivators in the square, looking at the blood refining and even blood condensation realm disciples beside him. Their faces were filled with excitement and anticipation, reliving the same feeling he had when he stood under the arena. Suddenly, Lu Ping felt a tinge of aging in him. This aging did not lie in Lu Ping's body, but in his heart. To survive in the world of cultivation, strength was the foundation, but the brain was the means. Without strength, the brain could only be a rootless duckweed, at the mercy of others. And without strength, it could only be buried in the long river of the cultivation world. Time flowed like water. Lu Ping seemed to have grasped something, and the corner of his mouth curved into a slight smile. Lu Ping took a step forward, and it seemed that he was getting closer to breaking through to the middle stage of core forging. Although Lu Ping came in a low-key manner, he did not deliberately hide his figure. Although the courtyard was large, how could Lu Ping's arrival be hidden from the enlightened masters present? Not to mention, he was the most important enlightened master among all the enlightened masters who came to the courtyard today. But when Lu Ping appeared in their divine sense, the originally unfathomable alchemy grandmaster had a thoughtful look on his face. In the blink of an eye, a trace of a smile appeared on his face. When everyone's divine sense probed again, they found that Lu Ping's temperament had suddenly changed. He had become a mortal who had come to the gathering of the immortals. Chapter 364. Taoist Xin Yuan's eyes lit up when he saw Lu Ping, and he immediately announced the start of the competition. The disciples on the stage naturally displayed their unique skills, but in the eyes of the young Taoist masters on the stage, their fights were just like playing house. Apart from those who wanted to pick a disciple from these disciples, the other cultivators were just making comments to satisfy the curiosity of their seniors. Lu Ping slowly strolled through the crowd. At some point, Hu Lily had also walked down from the central arena and was walking side by side with him. The disciples in the courtyard might not know Lu Ping, but Hu Lily was the Taoist master of the courtyard, and she was also a woman. Naturally, there were many people who knew her. To be able to walk side by side with Taoist master Hu, and from the way Hu Lily acted, that person's status would at least not be lower than Hu Lily's. Thinking of that, everyone immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. They hadn't thought that a core forging Taoist master would be standing amongst them, and even standing to the side of some people. No one would notice him. Furthermore, looking at his age, it was obvious he was one of the prideful geniuses of their sects that had been specially invited by the monastery. At this time, some well-informed cultivators had already inquired about the list of invited core forging Taoist masters, and quickly compared it with the Taoist masters on the central arena. In the end, they all looked at each other in dismay. This time, our sect has invited 26 core forging Taoist masters under the age of 100, and there are only 22 core forging Taoist masters who just appeared on the central arena. There are still 4 Taoist masters who haven't arrived, and including the one just now, there are still 3 people who haven't arrived. How can we guess who that Taoist master is? Who are the 4 Taoist masters who haven't arrived? Oh, the first one is naturally the water sword immortal Lu Xinping, the great alchemist master. The second one is called Yuan Xuanzhan, a member of the Yuan family island. I heard that he was one of the influential figures in the courtyard in the past, and there are even rumors that he didn't get along with Master Lu Xinping. TSK, he actually dared to make an enemy of Master Lu. This Yuan Zhan is quite a character. I heard that the Yuan clan was inexplicably hit by a hurricane a few years ago, and the island that the clan managed was almost destroyed. I expected that the Yuan clan would definitely decline. I didn't expect there to be such a character in the Yuan clan. What do you know? Although the Yuan clan has suffered great losses, none of their core forging enlightened masters are missing. Their foundation is still there. Moreover, it is said that the Yuan clan has a late-stage core forging enlightened master who has been cultivating in seclusion on Tianling Mountain. How could they collapse so easily? Let's not talk about this for now. Tell me, who are the other 2 people? As for the remaining 2, one is called Lin Xuanqing, who was also an influential figure in the monastery back then. It's said that he was even more famous than Reverend Lu Xinping back then. The other is even more amazing. Reverend Xinqian is actually Reverend Lu Xuanping's 8th senior apprentice sister. Lu Ping and Hu Lily were casually strolling around the square. Occasionally, Lu Ping would raise his head to look at the duels taking place on the platforms. However, the 2 of them had also overheard the conversation between the cultivators. 26 core forging stage, enlightened masters under 100 years old? Looks like there are definitely more than 100 core forging enlightened masters in the sect. I didn't expect my old rivals from back then to have all advanced to the core forging stage. Hu Lily smiled. That Yuan Zhan is a scheming person who likes to hide his abilities. It's even possible that the Yuan clan has an unclear relationship with the other sections. As for Lin Sheng and Leng Qian, they were known as geniuses in the monastery back then. Even you can't compare to them. It's no surprise that they've advanced to the core forging stage. The other 2 are fine, but Leng Qian is still Master's 8th direct disciple. Although what she did back then was unjust, if you really were in a life or death situation, it's already good enough that she didn't slap you and force you into a horde of demonic beasts to attract their attention. As for that Lin Sheng, I don't have any deep enmity with him. If he's tactful, I won't make things difficult for him. As for that Yuan Zhan, it's not the first time he's tried to harm me. Both times he's barely escaped with his life. He will definitely die. If the Yuan clan wants to protect him, then there's no need for the Yuan clan to exist. I trust that a cultivator clan that goes with the wind is not something our sect would place in our eyes. Hu Lily said with some surprise, ever since you came back from the East Sea, I can't feel it when you talk and act like a good friend, but you've become much more domineering and confident. Lu Ping was a bit embarrassed by Hu Lily's words. Just at that moment, the cultivators to the side cheered and ran behind the 2 of them. Lu Ping turned to look and saw that the matches on the martial stages had ended at some unknown time. Many cultivators were gathering on the central martial stage. Lu Ping looked at Hu Lily with a puzzled expression. When he looked up, he saw a core forging cultivator walk up to the central martial stage. He sat cross-legged on the ground and said with a smile, I knew Martial Uncle Xin Yuan would not take advantage of us after spending so much effort to invite us here. I'm afraid it'll be good enough if you don't lose out a bit. Sure enough, we've only had 1 round of matches this morning. For the rest of the time, I'll make a few commonly used talismans for my junior brothers and sisters. If there are any junior brothers or sisters who like to make talismans, we can spar with each other. In his early years, Lu Ping had spent most of his time crafting talismans. However, after he advanced to the blood condensation realm, he focused all of his time and energy on cultivation and pill concoction. As a result, the art of talisman crafting was neglected. However, Lu Ping's knowledge was far greater than before. After listening to the cultivator on the stage, the blood refining and blood condensation realm disciples below didn't understand much. Instead, Lu Ping said, I see. Hu Lili knew that Lu Ping used to be an expert in crafting talismans, so she smiled and said, Senior Martial Brother Xuantao's lecture is actually for you. Lu Ping recalled his previous doubts and asked, why did they stop after just one round of competition? Hu Lili giggled and said, it's not like you don't know Martial Uncle Xian Yuan's character. With so many core forging enlightened masters coming to the True Spirit Monastery, how could he not want to leave some benefits for the monastery? Lu Ping came to a sudden realization. No wonder he wanted me to display my alchemy skills to the monastery disciples. He even said he had already applied for a batch of spirit herbs from the sect. So he didn't want to directly apply for blood-condensing pills from the sect. This way, I can display my alchemy skills and also save the sect some resources. Furthermore, with my alchemy skills, I should have a 90% success rate in refining blood-condensing pills. Even if I managed to refine all of them, it wouldn't be a problem. This way, he can also obtain more blood-condensing pills for the monastery's disciples with the same amount of spirit herbs. Killing 3 birds with 1 stone. No wonder the monastery has become so prosperous in the past few years. Seeing that Lu Ping had understood the crux of the matter, Hu Lili added, this time, Martial Uncle Xian Yuan only held 1 round of competition in each half of the day in order to let you stay longer in the monastery. That way, every enlightened master who comes to the monastery will be able to show off their most profound skills to the monastery's disciples. As for how much they can comprehend, that will depend on their own luck. Lu Ping didn't know that enlightened Master Xian Yuan had actually put so much effort into this, and he was quite moved. But then he heard Hu Lili say, but you should also prepare yourself. This time, enlightened Master Xianjing's disciple, Tao Xianfang, has also come to the True Spirit Monastery. He is the most talented alchemist in our sect after you, and I heard that he is not too far away from becoming a pill-forging grandmaster. Perhaps he will also refine blood-condensing pills. At that time, don't be too careless. Furthermore, you are famous for your swordsmanship in the North Sea, so Martial Uncle Xian Yuan will definitely think of this. After the afternoon competition, it was Du Feng who went up on stage to demonstrate his swordsmanship. The motionless sword Du Feng's reputation was extremely high in Junling. He was a cultivator on the newcomer list. Du Feng normally didn't speak much, and he wasn't good at socializing with others. He casually took out a flying sword and began to demonstrate his swordsmanship in the air. This was a set of swordsmanship specifically used to kill people. During the war between humans and demons, this swordsmanship was extremely important for cultivators entering the battlefield for the first time. After Du Feng finished demonstrating the set of swordsmanship, he shook the flying sword in his hand and it flew up with a buzzing sound. This time, Du Feng deliberately slowed down his demonstration. At the same time, he took out a large bronze mirror from his storage artifact. As Du Feng channeled his primary energy into the mirror, the yellowish surface of the mirror suddenly became clear. A diagram of the blood flow within a person's body appeared on the surface of the mirror. Clearly, Du Feng was teaching this set of swordsmanship to everyone present. After Du Feng completed the second round of practice, he immediately began the third round of practice. This time, Du Feng restored the power and speed of the flying swords he had used earlier. Du Feng did not say a single word during the entire 3 sets of sword techniques. He only controlled the flying swords to the fullest. Du Feng's sharp swordsmanship won the admiration of the cultivators who came to watch. If one were to talk about the most famous sword cultivator in Jinling, it would naturally be Lu Ping, who had just mastered a grand divine art. However, Du Feng told everyone that Jinling's swordsmanship wasn't just passed down by water sword immortal Lu Xinping alone. Back when Lu Ping participated in the Grade 3 disciple ranking competition, there were only 200 late blood refining cultivators in the entire courtyard. But now, that number had almost doubled. Due to the arrival of so many enlightened masters, a large number of blood condensation cultivators from Jinling also came to listen to the lectures. For a moment, Jinling's side courtyard seemed to be overcrowded. After watching Du Feng demonstrate his swordsmanship, Hu Lili left due to some matters in the side courtyard. Lu Ping, on the other hand, unconsciously walked towards the back mountain of Jinling's side courtyard. That was the place where Lu Ping lived for 10 years. Chapter 365. In the past few days in the monastery, there had been quite a few disciples who had connections. They had followed their family elders and old friends to pay their respects to Lu Ping. Their meaning was that they wanted to become Lu Ping's disciple. Even if it was just an in-name disciple, even if they couldn't succeed, they still hoped to catch Lu Ping's eye and leave a good impression on him. The reason Lu Ping was so sought after wasn't just because of his own accomplishments, but also because he had a Dharma expert, Lao Tzu, standing behind him. Anyone with a discerning eye would naturally be envious of Lu Ping's current position, and so they would naturally do everything they could to curry favor with him. Lu Ping didn't have the patience for all that. He left his cultivation room early and walked toward the back of the monastery's mountain where he had studied the Tao and practiced his sword. Right now, Sun Peak was still the place where the monastery's disciples would gather to practice their sword in the morning. But the area of the 7th platform had already been expanded. Lu Ping could only find a few traces of that time by the side of the cliff. Because it was the day of the faction competition, the monastery no longer had a gathering of disciples to cultivate together. As a result, there weren't that many disciples on Sun Peak. Lu Ping looked at the scenery of the back of the mountain. He looked at the sea of clouds in the distance. Under the mountain wind, the clouds were like the waves of the sea. The moaning of the mountain wind made the sea of clouds seem even more ethereal than the sea. Lu Ping's interest was immediately piqued. A golden flying sword appeared in his hand. The flying sword was in Lu Ping's hand, and it wasn't being controlled by him in the air. Following that, Lu Ping's feet moved slightly, and his figure flickered as he displayed an extremely ordinary sword technique in coordination with the golden scale sword. Blood condensation bone transformation art. It was none other than the Zhenling sect's basic cultivation method that Lu Ping had been cultivating for 10 years in the blood refining realm. The basic cultivation method also had an extension to it, the 72 strikes of blood condensation bone melting fist technique that could be used with both fists and swords. Lu Ping was currently displaying a set of ordinary swordsmanship that almost all Zhenling disciples knew. However, even though it was such an ordinary sword skill, in the hands of a master swordsman like Lu Ping, it was as if it truly possessed the power to melt blood and melt bones. Lu Ping slashed out layers of sword flowers with the golden scale sword, and amidst the dazzling sword shadows were hidden infinite, killing intents and traps. Wang Qi was a second-grade disciple of the True Spirit Side Hall's 7th Squadron. Although he was only at the 8th layer of blood refining realm, he had still passed 2 rounds of the competition. Tomorrow would be the 3rd round. Wang Qi was quite fond of swordsmanship, especially after he saw the emotionless sword enlightened Du Feng's swordsmanship this afternoon. Wang Qi was very envious. He heard that Zhenling sect's famous water sword deity, enlightened Master Lu Xianping, might also come to the tournament. Although Wang Qi was slightly disappointed that he did not see the legendary water sword deity, after seeing enlightened Master Du Feng's swordsmanship, he still wanted to go to the back mountain to practice his swordsmanship even though he knew that the most important thing now was to prepare for the tournament tomorrow. There were very few true spirit monastery disciples on the back mountain, so Wang Qi quickly went to the 7th platform. It was said that when Lu Xianping was still a true spirit monastery disciple, he had been in the 7th Squadron. Furthermore, the current training platform of the 7th Squadron was also once used by Lu Xianping. Before Wang Qi even reached the 7th platform, he saw a youth who didn't look much older than him practicing his swordsmanship on the platform. Wang Qi was puzzled. For someone to be practicing his swordsmanship on the platform at this time, could it be one of his fellow disciples from the 7th Squadron? Wang Qi walked up to greet him, but he saw that the youth in front of him was actually practicing the blood-melting bone sword that all the true spirit monastery disciples were familiar with. That made Wang Qi a bit curious. Such a sword technique was something that every true spirit monastery disciple had trained in for several years. They had long since become extremely familiar with it. What was there to practice with? Just as Wang Qi was about to step forward and greet him, he realized that he didn't know the person in front of him at all. He couldn't help but be taken aback. However, it was in this moment that Wang Qi discovered something even more shocking. The 72 paths of blood condensation, bone-melting sword had already been unleashed by the person in front of him to form a huge sword-light furnace. It was as though anyone who entered the furnace would be devoured by the sword-light furnace, leaving nothing behind. That dense sword intent was absorbed into the furnace of sword light by Lu Ping. But Wang Qi felt a faint sense of fear and shock. The blood-melting bone sword could actually possess such power. This was a fortuitous encounter. Wang Qi was also a quick-witted person. After recovering from his shock, he immediately realized that this youth practicing his swordsmanship was definitely a legendary expert. It wasn't as if none of Zhenling's disciples had encountered something like this before. Although high-level cultivators in Zhenling were mysterious, they weren't unreasonable. Heaven's Spirit Mountain was only so big, and it wasn't uncommon for low-level disciples to encounter high-level cultivators and receive pointers from senior cultivators. In the cultivation world, this kind of thing was called running into a fortuitous encounter. But Zhenling was used to calling it running into a mortal fate. Wang Qi had never imagined he would be so lucky. Wang Qi hastily recollected himself and sat down cross-legged. He dispelled any external distractions and stared unblinkingly at the senior practicing his swordsmanship. Naturally, Lu Ping had long since noticed Wang Qi's arrival. However, Lu Ping didn't care about that. The most important thing for cultivators was when they felt like it. That was because it was the release of a cultivator's instincts, the awakening of one's potential. For cultivators, it was also a type of fortuitous encounter, a fortuitous encounter of enlightenment. Today, Lu Ping was feeling nostalgic. He suddenly had the desire to practice his swordsmanship. Naturally, he wouldn't suppress his thoughts. The 72 stances of the blood condensation bone-melting sword technique was practiced 3 times by a master swordsman like Lu Ping. This was the most basic sword technique. Although it wasn't very powerful, it had the widest range of application. Over thousands or even tens of thousands of years, it had been tempered by countless cultivators and had very few obvious flaws. It was the best way to solidify one's foundation. Wang Qi was attracted by the level of swordsmanship Lu Ping had demonstrated when he saw the golden flying sword in Lu Ping's hand suddenly change. The sword light, which had shrunk together like a huge sword furnace, suddenly broke apart. It was like a flood that had broken free from the shackles of a dam, sweeping in all directions. Wang Qi wasn't too far away from where Lu Ping was practicing his swordsmanship. Moreover, when Wang Qi realized that this was a great fortuitous encounter, there was no way he would hide far away. When Lu Ping was practicing the blood condensation bone-melting sword technique, Wang Qi didn't notice it because it wasn't very powerful and wasn't a sword kinesis technique. But now that Lu Ping's swordsmanship had changed, its power had increased by more than 100 times. Wang Qi could only feel an earth-shattering wave of swords rushing in his direction. He was like a decaying reef standing in the middle of a river, awaiting the fate of being destroyed like a twig. Just as Wang Qi was about to be devoured by Lu Ping's sword light, he saw the murderous sword light suddenly turn into small sentient fish circling around him. Wang Qi's back was already drenched in sweat. At the same time, he was pleasantly surprised. This expert in front of him already knew of his existence and clearly recognized his right to watch from the side. At the same time, Wang Qi was shocked by Lu Ping's superb swordsmanship. After Lu Ping finished practicing the blood condensation bone-melting sword technique, he used the sword kinesis technique and the raging waves hitting the shore. The clouds around Yang Peak immediately turned into rolling waves under the influence of Lu Ping's swordsmanship. The grass and trees on Yang Peak were swept away by the waves. If it weren't for the fact that Lu Ping's control over his swordsmanship had already reached the point of perfection, the grass and trees on Yang Peak would have already been turned to dust by Lu Ping's swordsmanship. At this time, the commotion caused by Lu Ping's swordsmanship had already attracted the attention of others. After a while, another monastery disciple carefully walked over, clearly afraid that he would disturb Lu Ping's swordsmanship. But when he saw Wang Qi, who was completely focused on watching Lu Ping practice, he relaxed and hurriedly walked over to Wang Qi's side. He sat down cross-legged and nodded to Wang Qi, but he saw that Wang Qi didn't seem to notice him at all. He was startled and quickly turned his head to carefully observe. At this time, Lu Ping's swordsmanship changed once more. He used the stone-piercing sky sword technique, and a loud, muffled sound rang out from the sea of clouds on the mountainside. It was as if the waves in the sea were endlessly crashing against the reefs on the shore. The cultivator who just arrived didn't feel anything, but Wang Qi had been here for quite some time. After casting this sword control technique, Lu Ping couldn't help but spread out his divine sense. His divine sense aura far surpassed that of an ordinary core forging realm cultivator's divine sense, and the murderous aura exuding from Lu Ping's swordsmanship had already put a heavy pressure on Wang Qi. And this was only because Lu Ping had restrained his divine sense. Otherwise, these two blood-refining realm disciples wouldn't be qualified to observe Lu Ping's swordsmanship at such a close distance. This was actually an inadvertent test from Lu Ping. In the cultivation world, the greatest taboo was to pass on knowledge to an incompetent person. If Wang Qi and Wang Qi couldn't even withstand this little bit of pressure, they naturally wouldn't be qualified to continue observing Lu Ping's swordsmanship. Of course, Lu Ping could also hold back his divine sense pressure and let the two of them observe. However, if the swordsmanship technique was not under the control of divine sense, how much power could it exert? How could the essence of Lu Ping's swordsmanship be displayed? At this time, Wang Qi was already sweating profusely. However, he had already observed 3 sets of swordsmanship from Lu Ping, and each set was stronger than the last. At this point, Wang Qi didn't dare to pay attention to this. Clearly, if Lu Ping continued, there would be even more powerful swordsmanship to be displayed. Naturally, Wang Qi wouldn't miss this opportunity. The sword light that filled the sky suddenly retracted, and Wang Qi immediately felt the pressure on their bodies lighten. The cultivators beside them had just heaved a sigh of relief. Although Wang Qi felt a sense of relief, he still felt a faint sense of regret. At this moment, a strange roar suddenly came from the sea of clouds that Lu Ping's swordsmanship had engulfed. The dispersed sea of clouds suddenly collapsed and shrunk rapidly. A strange, 4-legged horned snake swaggered back and forth in the sky above Yang Peak. With a slap, a headbutt, a coil, and a fling, each attack brought with it a strange sword whistle, as if an invisible sword chi was about to tear the void apart. At this time, another 2-side monastery disciples were attracted by the strange phenomenon caused by Lu Ping's swordsmanship. When they saw Wang Qi, they hurriedly sat down beside them to observe Lu Ping's swordsmanship. At this time, the power of Lu Ping's swordsmanship was getting stronger and stronger, and the strange phenomenon was also getting bigger and bigger. Many cultivators on Yang Peak had noticed this. The 4-legged horned serpent in the sky above the cliff suddenly circled in a strange way. Then, Lu Ping's sword technique changed, and the serpent suddenly collapsed. A golden sword light emerged from the collapsing sword light, and the originally scattered sword light seemed to have found its backbone. Following the golden light, it gathered into a surging river of sword light, rushing towards the distant sky like a vast river. Another 2 disciples dashed towards them from Yang Peak. However, Lu Ping's great river flowing east sword skill stopped the 2 disciples in their tracks even though they weren't charging towards the direction of the great river flowing east sword skill. Then, one of them showed some fear, but when the other saw the 4 cultivators sitting in front of him, he gritted his teeth and endured Lu Ping's momentum and walked forward. Seeing his companion's reaction, the person next to him also walked forward. As the 2 of them walked forward, the pressure from Lu Ping's swordsmanship suddenly increased. With every step the 2 of them took, the pressure grew even stronger. The 4 cultivators sitting in front of them all staggered back, as if they were about to be blown away by a gust of wind. When everyone looked again, they saw that Lu Ping's swordsmanship had indeed created tall, white waves on the river. It was as though snow-white waves of swordsmanship were blotting out the sky. Every time the waves rose, they brought with them an overwhelming momentum that could sweep everything away. Of the 2 cultivators who came later, the disciple who was slightly afraid stopped about 3 meters away from Wang Qi and the others. He couldn't take another step forward. Instead, it was the other disciple who barely made it to the side of Wang Qi and the others and sat down cross-legged. Only then did he realize that Wang Qi and the others had twisted expressions on their faces, as if they were enduring some kind of excruciating pain. Just as the disciple was startled, An even colder and heavier pressure than before came crashing down on him. While he was still in a daze, his entire body was forcefully pushed back 2 feet. He hurriedly circulated his arcane energy and did his best to pin his body to the ground. Only then did he stop being pushed back. However, he couldn't take another step forward. He could only calm himself down and observe Lu Ping's swordsmanship. Lu Ping had combined the great river flows east with the thousand snow sword art to form a torrent of swordsmanship. Even among the minor divine arts of swordsmanship, it was one of the most powerful secret arts. It wasn't something an ordinary cultivator could withstand. At this time, the commotion caused by Lu Ping's swordsmanship had already attracted the attention of the other cultivators in the courtyard. Many blood condensation cultivators flew over, but they were blocked by Lu Ping's sky-covering sword chi. Even a few core forging cultivators had rushed over after hearing the commotion. They clearly recognized Lu Ping, but they didn't reveal themselves and only watched quietly from afar. These people naturally couldn't hide from Lu Ping, but Lu Ping didn't care. The surging sword torrent froze in the sky, and then it shrank into a huge sword. Lu Ping pointed a finger at the sky, and the huge sword slashed down as if it wanted to split apart heaven and earth. The cultivators behind Lu Ping, with the exception of Wang Qi, all fell back. It was as if Lu Ping's sword was aimed at them. Just as Lu Ping's sword formed, Wang Qi seemed to sense it. He stabbed a mid-grade enchanted item into the ground, nailing himself to the ground. However, the heavy sword aura that Lu Ping released still caused Wang Qi to cough up a mouthful of blood. By now, more and more monastery disciples were rushing over to the 7th platform. However, these cultivators were unable to enter the platform like Wang Qi's group of 6. At that moment, Lu Ping was completely immersed in his sword technique. He didn't have the time to pay attention to his surroundings. Lu Ping felt as if his sword technique had reached a great threshold. It was as if he only needed to put in a little more effort, and he would be able to break through this final obstacle. Lu Ping was like an undercurrent that was accumulating power. After going through all of his sword techniques from start to finish, Lu Ping didn't stop. Instead, he took out all of the sword techniques he had learned over the years, including the Xianling sect's signature sword technique, the Merry 18 swords, as well as the dozen or so sword techniques he had obtained from the Flying Cloud Grotto. Lu Ping used all of them with ease, merging them into the sword light emitted by the golden scale sword. He then used them one by one. It looked as if Lu Ping was simultaneously using those dozens of sword techniques. For a moment, the cultivators who were observing Lu Ping's swordsmanship were confused. It was as if Lu Ping's swordsmanship had suddenly become strange. Each set of swordsmanship was executed in a different style. Sometimes, Lu Ping would use several different methods to execute a set of swordsmanship, causing the observing cultivators to feel an extremely strange and oppressive aura. The aura was rapidly surging in the surrounding void, as if it was looking for a way to vent its anger. Lu Ping used dozens of different sword techniques at the same time. The comprehension in his heart was becoming increasingly clear. He couldn't help but let out a long cry. Wonderful! Wonderful! Lu Ping put the golden scale sword back into his hand. This time, he used a brand new sword technique. After this sword technique was displayed, the dozens of sword techniques that were being performed by the psychic sword lights around Lu Ping seemed to be affected by a huge gravitational force and were pulled into the sword technique vortex created by the golden scale sword. The entire sky was filled with sword cries. Not only the golden scale sword and the psychic sword lights, but also the flying swords of the disciples who were observing Lu Ping's swordsmanship, the flying swords of the blood condensation cultivators, and even the magic treasures of the core forging cultivators. At this moment, all of them were under the control of their masters. However, there were still many flying swords that broke free of their master's control and were pulled into the sword technique vortex created by Lu Ping. The expressions of the core forging enlightened masters changed. The flying swords in their hands naturally wouldn't be sucked away by Lu Ping's sword technique. However, when they saw the dozens of flying swords flying into the sword technique vortex created by Lu Ping like moths to a flame, almost all the cultivators instantly realized the level of power of this sword technique. This was a great swordsmanship divine ability. However, at this moment, The great swordsmanship divine ability seemed to be beyond the understanding of others. The sword technique vortex created by Lu Ping was getting bigger and bigger. Not only were the clouds around Yang Peak swept away by Lu Ping, but the sea of clouds in the distance was also continuously gathering into Lu Ping's sword technique vortex. The huge celestial phenomenon not only covered the entire sky of the true spirit side courtyard, but also affected the sect-protecting formation of Tianling Mountain at this moment. There seemed to be only the sound of swords echoing in the sky. Within the range of the celestial phenomenon created by Lu Ping's sword technique, whether it was a dermic weapon, dermic treasure, or a dermic treasure, as long as it was a sword, it seemed to have the posture of a great swordsmanship divine ability under Lu Ping's sword technique. At this moment, no matter who it was, if they wanted to challenge Lu Ping, as long as their weapon was a flying sword, their strength would be weakened for no reason, unless their swordsmanship was also at the level of a great swordsmanship divine ability. At this moment, there seemed to be infinite joy in Lu Ping's heart. Just as he displayed all the swordsmanship he had mastered, the Sea of All Rivers technique was finally displayed by Lu Ping again. At this moment, Lu Ping finally crossed the hurdle in front of him. This time, it was a true great swordsmanship divine ability. Although Lu Ping had long comprehended the realm of great swordsmanship divine ability, the Sea of All Rivers technique was not created by Lu Ping after all. What he had comprehended was something that belonged to someone else. Although it was still powerful, it was not easy for him to fully unleash the power of this great swordsmanship divine ability. However, this time, Lu Ping finally grasped the opportunity to integrate everything he had comprehended about swordsmanship over the years into his own swordsmanship. It turned out that this was the true meaning of the Sea of All Rivers technique. This was his own great swordsmanship divine ability. This was the real Sea of All Rivers technique. At this moment, the commotion caused by Lu Ping was no longer limited to Jinling Side Courtyard. Even the cultivators on Tianling Mountain were alarmed. In the dark night sky, various rays of light appeared and rushed towards Sun Peak. Lu Ping could sense that many of the cultivators' auras were stronger than his own. Even when Lu Ping achieved his own great swordsmanship, a mysterious thought suddenly descended from the top of Tianling Mountain. After sweeping through Lu Ping, it mysteriously disappeared. At this time, Lu Ping had already woken up from his comprehension of swordsmanship. As soon as he withdrew the golden scale sword, the huge swordsmanship vortex in the sky suddenly disappeared. Dozens of flying swords and celestial artifacts fell from the sky, but they had all become scrap metal. When Lu Ping looked at the entire platform, he saw that the entire seventh platform had been destroyed beyond recognition by his swordsmanship practice. However, when Lu Ping looked at the platform that was riddled with holes by the sword lights and sword chi, he smiled with satisfaction. This could be considered as a place of inheritance left by Lu Ping. In the future, if a cultivator who devoted himself to cultivating swordsmanship came here, he would be able to gain something from this platform that was riddled with holes. Lu Ping glanced at the six blood refining realm disciples behind him who had been persistently observing his swordsmanship. Then, he glanced at the void around him and suddenly burst into laughter. Then, his body collapsed and turned into a pool of water. There was no trace of Lu Ping on the platform. Escape minor swordsmanship. Chapter 366. The sudden disappearance of the master in front of them caused the people behind Wang Qi to lose all of their willpower, and they immediately fainted. Wang Qi's condition was even worse than the 5 people behind him. The wound in his chest was still throbbing with pain, and his mind was filled to the brim with sword lights. Waves of exhaustion seeped out from the depths of his bones, and he tried his best to pass out as soon as possible. Fresh blood flowed out from the corner of Wang Qi's mouth. He had bitten the tip of his tongue to force himself not to pass out. Wang Qi knew this was the most important moment. He had observed the sword technique for the longest time, so he should have learned the most from it. If he couldn't memorize what he had just seen, he would probably forget most of it by the time he woke up. After all, the sword technique that the master had displayed was too profound, and Wang Qi couldn't comprehend even a fraction of it. He could only memorize it firmly in his mind. In the future, when his cultivation level increased, these things would be of great benefit to him. At this time, the seventh platform of Sun Peak was already filled with the monastery disciples and blood condensation cultivators who had heard the news. Because of the pressure from Lu Ping's sword technique, no one was able to enter, but now they all rushed to the platform, clamoring about the huge phenomenon that had just occurred. Many sharp-minded cultivators, especially some blood condensation cultivators, looked at the platform beneath their feet. The sword chi that Lu Ping had intentionally released during his sword technique had left many sword marks on it. Although the marks were covered by dust, and there were too many cultivators on the platform, it was impossible to see the full picture. As for Wang Qi and the other 5, the crowd silently walked past them without disturbing them. Instead, they looked at the 6 of them with envy. The cultivator practicing on Sun Peak today was definitely a core forging expert, and the 6 of them had obtained a great opportunity. A bright light landed on Sun Peak. It was clearly a core forging expert. The cultivators on the 7th platform all quieted down. When they saw the cultivator within the light, they all bowed and said, "Greetings, Mountain Elder Xianyuan." Sage Xianyuan first looked at the 6 cultivators on the ground. By then, even Wang Qi had succumbed and fainted. Next, Sage Xianyuan turned to look at the surrounding void. Then, he turned to look at the platform. His brows furrowed. Seeing Taoist Master Xianyuan's expression, the cultivators on the platform had a strange expression on their faces. They all thought to themselves, could it be that this Taoist Master Miser has his eyes on this platform again? However, it's hard to say. It's obvious that this place is very helpful for cultivators to comprehend their swordsmanship. If Taoist Master Ironcock really wants to surround this place and collect spirit stones from cultivators who enter, then there's nothing we can do. However, to everyone's surprise, Perfected Xianyuan looked at everyone and said calmly, "I'm afraid Group 7's training platform will have to be changed." Everyone was puzzled. This was the place where a master of the sect practiced his swordsmanship. Why did it have to be changed? Could it be that there was no platform on Yang Peak for Group 7 to practice their swordsmanship? Those who were quick-witted had already thought of something from Perfected Xianyuan's words and quickly turned their attention to the platform under their feet. Perfected Xianyuan ordered a few blood condensation cultivators who came with him to send Wang Qi and the others back to the side courtyard. Then, he returned to the side courtyard. After Perfected Xianyuan left, many cultivators followed suit. There were too many people on the platform. It was impossible for them to see the sword marks that Lu Ping left behind. It was better to leave first and come back later. The platform was there anyway, so there was no need to worry that he would run away. When Perfected Xianyuan returned to the side courtyard, he saw Hu Lili waiting at the entrance. Perfected Xianyuan knew about the relationship between Hu Lili and Lu Ping. He smiled bitterly and said, "That brat is always looking for trouble for the old man. He's been torturing the old man in the middle of the night, but now he's nowhere to be seen." 6 jade bottles appeared in Hu Lili's hands. She smiled and said, "Martial uncle, he asked me to give these to the 6 unconscious disciples. He's in a hurry to comprehend something, so he went into closed-door cultivation." Taoist Xianyuan took the bottle and opened it. His eyes lit up. Good stuff. These disciples are really lucky. They were the ones who benefited the most from Martial Nephew Lu's sword practice. And now there are these bottles of pills. Could it be that Martial Nephew Lu has taken a liking to these disciples and wants to take them in? Hu Lili shook her head and said, "He has no intention of taking disciples now. Even if he does, he won't take in so many disciples at once." Perfected Xianyuan said with some regret, "That's a pity." At the same time, on top of Tianling Mountain, "Is this your 9th disciple?" "Yes, Martial Uncle." "Not bad. Even you and Tianlin didn't have such achievements when you were at this level. It's just that this time he was a bit too reckless." Enlightenment is an opportunity for every cultivator. You can't blame him for that. Cultivation is all about doing what you want. If you have too many misgivings, you'll lose the heart to improve and you'll lose a great opportunity. Martial Uncle's teaching is correct. Tomorrow, tell Xinshan to have someone place that platform on Heavenly Spirit Mountain. The inheritance of a great divine ability is enough for us to enter our sect's true inheritance ground. Right now, it's hard for our disciples to comprehend anything just by looking at the sword scars. If we place it there, it'll be hard for other sects to take advantage of it. The next day, the monastery's faction competition was still ongoing. But there were still a few small interludes during the competition. There were even a few disciples who forfeited, allowing a few lucky disciples to advance to the next round without having to fight. However, Lu Ping was nowhere to be seen among the spectating core forging cultivators. In the following days, Lung Qian, Yuan Zhan, Lin Sheng, and the others also appeared in the side hall one after another, drawing cheers from the side hall's disciples. Every time after the competition, there would be an enlightened master giving a lecture, who Lily would demonstrate how to break formations, and Chen Lian would refine 3 high-grade enchanted tools in a row. Perfected Master Xian Yuan announced that these would be the reward for the top 3 cultivators, causing the monastery's disciples to cry out in surprise. It had to be known that most of the monastery's disciples were blood-refining cultivators, and a high-grade enchanted tool was a treasure that could only be used by a mid-blood condensation cultivator. Perfected Master Xuanyuan's rare generosity caused the disciples to cheer loudly. Ji Zixuan demonstrated his puppetry art, Ma Yu and Zhong Jian demonstrated their joint attacks, and so on. Almost every enlightened master had their own specialties and areas of expertise. When these things were shown, not only the blood-refining and blood condensation disciples below the stage, but the other enlightened masters were also very serious. At the same time, they were able to verify their own knowledge and gain some insights. It was as if everyone had gone through a Tao discussion. There were still many cultivators who had appeared in this competition that caused many enlightened masters to have thoughts of accepting them as disciples. It was said that Yao Yong had personally promised at least 5 disciples that once they advanced to the blood condensation realm, they could become his in-name disciples. If it wasn't for the sect's rule that direct disciples had to be at the mid-blood condensation realm, Yao Yong might have even accepted them as direct disciples. There were also some cultivators who had been more opportunistic. After failing to become the Water Sword Immortal's disciple, they turned their attention to Hu Lili. But Hu Lili had the same thoughts as Lu Ping. She didn't plan on accepting disciples right now. Today was already the final day of the faction competition. The monastery's disciples were all filled with excitement. Other than the final results of the faction competition, the mysterious Water Sword Immortal Lu Xianping was also going to make an appearance. At the same time, he was going to demonstrate his alchemy arts to the other genius alchemist, Tao Xianfang. This time, Taoist Xinyuan had applied for the sect to refine 3 furnaces of blood-condensing pills. As for how many blood-condensing pills the 2 enlightened masters could obtain, that would depend on how many blood-condensing pills the 2 enlightened masters could refine. Back when Lu Ping and the others had participated in the competition, the top 8 had all obtained a blood-condensing pill that had already caused the monastery disciples' blood to boil. But with an alchemy grandmaster, the number of blood-condensing pills would definitely greatly increase. As for the other alchemist, Tao Xianfang, he had been selectively ignored. With an alchemy grandmaster participating, how could they care about a mere alchemist? In truth, Tao Xianfang had also come holding his breath. He was a rising star in Zhenling. Originally, because of Lu Ping, he hadn't been willing to come. If an alchemist and an alchemy grandmaster were to display their alchemy arts at the same time, then even if he didn't have the heart to compete, he would still be compared by others. Just thinking about it, he knew how miserable that would be. But his uncle master Taoist Xinyan sneered at him. Are you willing to live your entire life in the shadow of a single person? You can lose openly and honorably, but you can't avoid a fight. Taoist Xianfang looked at all the monastery disciples and blood condensation cultivators below the stage. Then he solemnly took out a pill furnace from his enchanted item. Some of the knowledgeable cultivators below the stage immediately cried out in alarm. A high-grade pill furnace. Taoist Xianfang was a bit proud of himself. This time, his uncle master had even lent his high-grade pill furnace to him. It had to be known that there were only 6 high-grade pill furnaces in the entire Zhenling sect. Of those 6 high-grade pill furnaces, other than the 4 grandmasters who each controlled one, the remaining 2 were always placed in the Alchemy Pavilion's second-grade alchemy room. Originally, After Lu Ping became an alchemy grandmaster, the sect would definitely give him one of the high-grade pill furnaces. But for some unknown reason, Lu Ping had never gone to claim it. Daoist Xinyan believed that Lu Ping definitely already had a high-grade pill furnace, so he never went to the alchemy pavilion to claim it. This time, Daoist Xinfang mustered up his courage to compete with Lu Ping. Other than the high-grade pill furnace as his trump card, he flipped his palm and a bean-sized flame appeared in his hand. As he condensed the true essence in his hand, the flame suddenly rose up. The huge heat wave caused the monastery disciples near the stage to retreat. Geocentric molten flame, a mid-grade mystic class heaven and earth spirit fire. When a cultivator below the stage shouted out the name of this heaven and earth spirit fire, it naturally caused many cultivators to cry out in surprise. Chen Lian asked Lily, who was beside him curiously. Junior apprentice brother Lu also obtained a geocentric molten flame in Failing Island and offered it to the sect? Lily nodded and said, "Strange. How did it end up in his hands?" Although the two of them spoke in a low voice, there was no cultivator in the audience who could not hear what they were talking about. Daoist Xinfang naturally heard their conversation, and his expression became ugly. The spiritual flame in his hand was indeed something Lu Ping had obtained from Failing Island. It was only because Xinfang was the most outstanding alchemist cultivated by the Alchemy Pavilion that after he had advanced to the core forging stage, his teacher, Daoist Xinjing, begged for this geocentric molten flame from his ancestor, Tianlu Laozu, so that he could quickly become a grandmaster alchemist. Originally, Daoist Xinfang was somewhat pleased with himself for revealing this trump card. However, when the conversation between Chen Lian and Lily reached the ears of the crowd, Daoist Xuanfang's complacent expression immediately disappeared like a bubble. Daoist Xinfang naturally knew that the conversation between Chen Lian and Lily was definitely a tacit understanding between the two of them. However, this was the truth and Daoist Xinfang did not bother to deny it. He only snorted coldly and immediately started refining the blood-condensing pill. In all fairness, Daoist Xuanfang's alchemy skills were indeed only one step away from becoming a grandmaster alchemist. As the leader of the Alchemy Pavilion's third generation of disciples, Tianlu Laozu would definitely not have given him the geocentric molten flame if he had any real skills. Daoist Xuanfang's skillful control of fire, meticulous alchemy process, and rich experience in alchemy made the blood-condensing pill the most difficult to refine below the half-step core forging realm. However, for someone like Daoist Xinfang, who was only one step away from becoming an alchemist, it was naturally not difficult at all. 4 hours later, amidst the fragrance of medicinal pills that filled the air above the courtyard, Daoist Xuanfang's eyes lit up. With a wave of his sleeves, the lid of the high-grade cauldron opened, and 8 blood-condensing pills jumped out of the cauldron in a row amidst the excited cheers of the blood-refining realm disciples below the stage. Daoist Xinfang waved his hand and tossed a jade bottle into the air. After collecting the 8 blood-condensing pills, he nodded his head in satisfaction. He then passed the jade bottle to Daoist Xinyuan, who was already smiling happily at the side. The cultivators below the stage who were watching the alchemy process immediately burst into loud cheers. Daoist Xinfang thought that the crowd was cheering for his alchemy skills, so he turned around to accept the crowd's adoration. However, he noticed that the crowd was looking at him with surprise, admiration, and shock. However, these gazes were not on him, but on the side beside him. When Daoist Xinfang turned around with a frown, he noticed that Lu Ping was already standing beside Lily, Chen Lian, and the others. Noticing Daoist Xuanfang's gaze, Lu Ping turned around and glanced at him, then nodded with a smile. This surprised Daoist Xinfang a little, but he nodded back and retreated. The reason why the crowd was cheering was because they suddenly realized that the young cultivator who had caused a huge celestial phenomenon during his swordsmanship practice on the 7th platform of Sun Peak more than 10 days ago had appeared on the central arena. Lu Ping's performance on Sun Peak that day left an indelible impression on the crowd. However, many cultivators did not know who this young cultivator was. Although some cultivators repeatedly guessed that he was the famous water sword immortal, when they asked the senior cultivators for guidance, they were all secretive, neither admitting nor denying it. However, on the second day, the seventh platform of Sun Peak was cut off from the mountain. The sword mark that Lu Ping left on the platform disappeared along with the platform that was cut off, leaving behind a brand new platform that was a few feet lower. This caused the cultivators who wanted to comprehend the sword mark to be furious. When Lu Ping heard that the inheritance he left on the seventh platform was brought back to the sect's inheritance ground by Taoist Guo Xinshan the next day, he was also very surprised. The sect actually attached so much importance to the inheritance left behind by an early-stage core forging disciple. However, he did not know how rare it was for a core forging cultivator to achieve great divine power, let alone an early-stage core forging cultivator. It's the Water Sword Immortal. He really is the Water Sword Immortal, Lu Xinping. The cultivators below the arena immediately became excited when they heard Taoist Xuanyuan's introduction. Standing among the crowd, Wang Qi and the other 5 people's eyes lit up when they heard the crowd's discussion. They were lucky enough to obtain the Water Sword Immortal's opportunity that night. Chapter 367. Today, it was destined to be Lu Ping's stage again. Lu Ping did not know that Xinling's pill concoction master was also qualified to control a high-grade pill furnace. Originally, after Lu Ping became a pill concoction master, the pill concoction pavilion should have taken the initiative to explain these matters clearly, but because the cultivator who was in charge of the pill concoction pavilion deliberately neglected it, Lu Ping did not know about it at all. Therefore, when the Na Chuan cauldron, which was half a person tall, was taken out by Lu Ping from his storage ring, the huge, 3-legged cauldron landed on the center of the arena, causing the ground to tremble. At the same time, all the cultivators on and below the stage were also trembling. Taoist Xin Fang's eyes were wide open as he looked at the Na Chuan cauldron, which appeared to be simple, calm, and imposing. At this moment, no one could be clearer than him about the significance of a top-grade pill furnace to Xinling. Xinling only had 3 top-grade pill furnaces, and only Tianlu Laozu could use them at will. As for other pill refiners, even if they were pill concoction masters, if they wanted to use the sect's top-grade pill furnaces, they had to get the approval of the sect's Laozu. Among Xinling's 3 top-grade pill furnaces, 2 of them no longer had the chance to advance to a magic treasure. Only the Tri-Sun Cauldron in Tianlu Laozu's hands still had the hope to advance to a magic treasure. However, Tianlu Laozu had cooperated with the Master of the Refining Hall, Laozu several times in an attempt to advance the Tri-Sun Cauldron into a pill furnace magic treasure. Unfortunately, they all failed, and there were several times when they almost damaged the foundation of the Tri-Sun Cauldron, causing Tianlu Laozu to feel distressed and nurture it for several years before it could recover. If a top-grade pill furnace wanted to be promoted to a magic treasure, not only did it require the cooperation of an alchemist and a tool refiner, but the requirements for the pill furnace treasure restriction were also much stricter than ordinary magic treasures. The pill furnace treasure restriction was rarer and more precious than ordinary treasure restrictions. This was why the value of a top-grade pill furnace was said to be incomparable to a spiritual magic treasure. As for Xinling's other 2 top-grade pill furnaces, one of them had been used for thousands of years and had gradually begun to age. Even if Tianjiang Laozu tried his best to remedy it, it would only take him a few more decades. The other one was fine, but because its starting point was too low when it was being refined, there was no hope for it to advance to the next grade. The other person who knew the true value of a pill furnace was Chen Lian. However, even if the other enlightened masters did not know the true value of a top-grade pill furnace like Chen Lian and Xian Fang, they knew that Xinling only had 3 top-grade pill furnaces after tens of thousands of years of accumulation. Now that they saw Lu Ping casually take out a top-grade pill furnace, how could they not know that this was a treasure that could stabilize the sect's fate? Taoist Master Duo Bao was indeed Taoist Master Duo Bao. Once this pill furnace was revealed, not to mention other things, perhaps after the grand competition, Tianlu Laozu and Tianjiang Laozu would immediately come knocking on their door. The biggest similarity between alchemist and weapon refiner was not that they both used fire, but rather the pill furnace. Alchemist used pill furnaces to pursue the pinnacle of alchemy, while weapon refiner used pill furnaces to refine the highest grade pill furnaces to pursue the pinnacle of refining. Just when everyone's attention was attracted by the simple and unadorned Na Chuan cauldron on the arena, a sky-blue flame had unknowingly appeared in Lu Ping's hand. The elegant flame did not have the tyrannical spiritual power fluctuations of ordinary heaven and earth spirit fire. Instead, it gave people a feeling of a gentle breeze and drizzling rain. Daoist Xianfang's eyes suddenly focused on the flame in Lu Ping's hand. Blue spirit fire. It's actually a high-grade profound level blue spirit fire. Naturally, there were many experienced and knowledgeable cultivators around the arena, and after a moment, the entire courtyard had already known that the great alchemist master Daoist Lu Xinping had not only revealed a top-grade pill furnace on the arena, but also took out a high-grade profound level blue spirit fire. Two things that could be called the top treasures of the cultivation world. For a moment, the heads of the courtyard disciples trembled, and they scrambled to rush forward, wanting to see the true appearance of these two treasures. The blue spirit fire did not have the tyrannical and unparalleled nature of ordinary heaven and earth spirit fires. Instead, it had a rare and gentle quality. Among the profound level heaven and earth spirit fires, it was the most suitable treasure for alchemy, and it was also the easiest for cultivators to control. Therefore, it was a treasure that many alchemists and even great alchemist masters yearned for. After Lu Ping took out the blue spirit fire, he focused all his attention on alchemy. He naturally knew that after he took out the blue spirit fire in the Na Chuan cauldron, it would cause a big shock in the sect. However, at this time, Lu Ping could not care so much. Only after a cultivator became a core-forging spiritual master would he truly have the right to speak in a big sect like Zhenling. However, the amount of the right to speak depended on the cultivator's own strength. Although Lu Ping had a Dharma manifestation stage teacher, Tianling Laozu was a double-edged sword for Lu Ping and the sect. Others often ignored the existence of disciples like Tianling Laozu because of the strength of Tianling Laozu. If Lu Ping could break through Tianling Laozu in the sect and make his own voice heard, not only would it not weaken Tianling Laozu's influence in the sect, but when the master and disciple joined forces, their voice in the sect would be even more convincing. Lu Ping did not want to break away from the Zhonghua sect, but he wanted to let the people in the sect see that there was still a Zhonghua sect with the Taoting sect. A giant tree could only stand tall and straight if its roots were spread out and deeply rooted. A blood-condensing pill that was equivalent to a late blood condensation realm pill was nothing to Lu Ping's current pill concoction skills. However, Lu Ping was still meticulous in his refinement. On the stage, there were only spiritual herbs, cauldron, spirit fire, and Lu Ping. There were no other supplementary treasures. A strong divine sense surrounded the entire cauldron and tried its best to penetrate into the cauldron, carefully experiencing every process of the blood-condensing pill's formation. 10 embryonic blood-condensing pills slowly took shape, forming 10 small spiritual energy whirlpools. Lu Ping's Zhen Yuan returned to spiritual energy, and the pure pills fused the medicinal energy with the spiritual energy. Seeing that the condensing of the pills was about to end, Lu Ping's expression changed. He felt that the entire Na Chuan cauldron had suddenly become a place that attracted spiritual energy. Could it be? A hint of joy flashed across Lu Ping's face. At the same time, Tao Xinfang, who was carefully observing Lu Ping's refinement process, also noticed the phenomenon of heaven and earth spiritual energy gathering towards the Na Chuan cauldron. Tao Xinfang looked at Lu Ping in disbelief. He did not expect his pill concoction skills to have reached such a level. External pill transformation. This was a breakthrough after one's pill concoction skills had reached the pinnacle. Normally, even if there was no wastage in a cauldron of pills, at most, 10 pills would be produced. This was the so-called full pill concoction rate, or rather, a 100% pill formation rate. This was the limit of any kind of pill. However, when an alchemist reached the limit of a pill concoction, there would often be an unexpected breakthrough in their pill concoction skills. At the last moment of the pill concoction, a large amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy would be absorbed into the cauldron, forming an external pill transformation. External pill transformation could also be called a small magical power in the world of pill concoction. Lu Ping raised his left hand, and the huge Na Chuan cauldron opened its lid. 12 blood-condensing pills flew out of the cauldron in a straight line, and Lu Ping caught them one by one with a jade bottle. At this time, the crowd of Jinling disciples who were watching Lu Ping's pill concoction below the center of the arena were already in an uproar. 12 pills, 12 blood-condensing pills. The one who was the most excited was none other than enlightened Master Xian Yuan. He looked at the 12 blood-condensing pellets handed to him by Lu Ping, and a smile bloomed on his face like a blossoming flower. He'd made a huge profit this time. As an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years, enlightened Master Xian Yuan might not be as strong as the new disciples like Chen Lian and Yao Yong, but his knowledge and experience far surpassed them. Even if enlightened Master Xian Yuan wasn't an alchemist, how could he not know about the miraculous technique of condensing pellets outside of the pellets? The ones who were the happiest were naturally the monastery disciples participating in this competition. It had to be known that this time Taoist Xian Yuan had already said that no matter how many blood-condensing pills the two alchemists refined, they would all be rewarded with a blood-condensing pill. As a result, the disciples below were all clamoring, naturally hoping that Lu Ping could refine as many as he could. Tao Xianfang felt a bit awkward standing on the martial arena. That was because he sensed the monastery disciples below were no longer looking at him with worship. Instead, they were looking at him with a kind of hidden bitterness. Yes, if his furnace of blood-condensing pills had also been refined by Lu Ping, then perhaps the number of disciples who could obtain blood-condensing pills in this competition would increase to 4. The gazes of the disciples below made Tao Xianfang feel a bit ashamed of his inferiority in front of Lu Ping. In truth, when Lu Ping had seen his blood-condensing pill transformation technique appear, he had also been startled. He hadn't thought he would have such good fortune. Previously, he had been thinking about how he would be able to make a name for himself in the sect. But with this blood-condensing pill transformation technique, just based on this, Lu Ping's position within the sect would definitely not be ordinary. Although the external pill transformation technique was based on the alchemist's alchemy skills, comprehending this kind of external pill transformation technique was even more dependent on luck. Furthermore, the external pill transformation technique Lu Ping had comprehended when refining the blood-condensing pill could only be used on the blood-condensing pill, unless Lu Ping later comprehended the external pill transformation technique from another type of medicinal pill. Blood-condensing pill. Tao Xianfang smiled bitterly as he thought about it. Although the difficulty of refining the blood-condensing pill was only equivalent to refining a late blood condensation pill, the 24 500-year-old spiritual herbs used to refine the blood-condensing pill were no less precious than some 1,000-year-old spiritual herbs. As a result, the value of each blood-condensing pill was even higher than some core forging realm medicinal pills. But this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was the status of the blood-condensing pill in a sect. It was an indispensable item to create a low-level reserve cultivator for the sect. It was an item that could affect the balance of the cultivation world. Tao Xianfang could already imagine Lu Ping concocting as many blood-condensing pellets as he could with the limited number of spirit herbs. Soon, the entire Jinling sect's blood-condensing pellets would fall to Lu Ping. And with this alone, Lu Ping would be able to contend against the entire alchemy pavilion in Jinling sect, with the exception of the Sky Furnace Ancestor. At this point, Lu Ping had already become the focus of all the blood-refining realm disciples in Jinling. Chapter 368. In his excitement, Lu Ping concocted his second batch of blood-condensing pellets. Once again, he used the external pellet transformation technique. Another 12 blood-condensing pellets were produced amidst the deafening cheers of the side hall disciples. In addition to the 8 blood-condensing pellets that Tao Xianfang had concocted, each of the top 32 disciples in the side hall's competition would receive a blood-condensing pellet as a reward. This was something that Jinling sect had never seen before. The water sword immortal and alchemist Lu Xianping had actually managed to refine the outer pill transformation art at the end of the monastery competition. This news naturally wouldn't be hidden, and it would quickly be spread by cultivators. The entire Northern Seas cultivation world would soon learn of it. Is there any place in the sect that can accommodate Grandmaster Lu Xianping? Master's reprimand is correct. Disciple really was too impulsive this time. It was just that I didn't want to lose this chance to comprehend sword arts. But then I also didn't expect to comprehend the outer pill transformation art while refining the blood-condensing pill. Within the Chonghuang Palace, Lu Ping looked at his angry teacher and hastily explained with a smile, "For you to rush back to the Chonghuang Palace this time, what are you plotting?" Lu Ping carefully looked at his teacher sitting at the front. His expression seemed much better now. His teacher had clearly just wanted to teach him a lesson so he would remember it. He smiled. Disciple can't hide this little scheme of mine from master. Disciple's trip to the monastery this time coincidentally ended up with a great harvest. So I want to borrow teacher's precious land to cultivate. The spiritual chi here is as dense as a large-scale spirit vein. Disciple's soundwave manner can't compare to it no matter what. Lu Tianling scolded, "Crafty fellow, you must have avoided quite a few people to rush back in such a hurry. Now you even dare to plot against Fa Xiang Laozu. Do you think Fa Xiang Laozu is so easy to plot against? That's why I'm here to seek help from teacher." On the second day after the monastery competition, the refining hall's hall master, Tian Jiang Laozu, sent a message for Lu Ping to make a trip to the refining hall. However, the disciple in charge of sending the message was unable to find any trace of Lu Ping even after searching all over Heavenly Spirit Mountain. Since that disciple was unable to find him, he went to ask all of Lu Ping's friends and fellow disciples about Lu Ping's whereabouts. That caused Hu Lily and the others to be a bit flabbergasted. Only then did they realize that Lu Ping had once more disappeared after the monastery competition. After not seeing any trace of Lu Ping for several days, Hu Lily and the others began to panic. They immediately thought back to how Lu Ping had been in the limelight that day. Could it be that Lu Ping had already been killed? After all, an alchemy grandmaster like Lu Ping was someone that the demon race and even other sects would want to eliminate as soon as possible. Furthermore, with Lu Ping's strength, if someone wanted to kill Lu Ping so stealthily, that person would have to be at least a peak late core forging expert. But then everyone noticed that Lu Ping's mind lamp hadn't been extinguished. If that was the case, could it be that Lu Ping hadn't been killed, but had instead been captured? After all, a living alchemy grandmaster was much more useful than a dead one. When Li Xianru heard about this matter, she immediately went to the palace of Zhonghua to report the matter to Lu Tianling. However, she was told by Lu Tianling's personal maid that Laozu was in seclusion and wouldn't be receiving any guests. Li Xianru was lost in thought. After returning to her cave, she sent her disciples to accompany Hu Lily and the others to search for Lu Ping. In the back mountain of the alchemy pavilion, an old man in his 60s appeared out of nowhere. He held a wooden staff in his hand and walked towards Tianlu Laozu's alchemy room. "Junior brother, you can sit still. That is a top-grade alchemy furnace. Don't you want to take a look at it? What if it has the potential to be upgraded to a magic treasure?" "So what if it can be upgraded to a magic treasure? Don't tell me you can snatch it from his hands?" Tianlu Laozu said helplessly as he looked at the old man who was slowly walking into the alchemy room. If it can really be upgraded to a magic treasure, with that kid's strength, how would he dare to carry a magic treasure pill furnace on him? Naturally, the sect will have to step forward and make it the sect's most precious treasure. Only then will we be able to stop others from coveting it. In this way, you will be able to use a magic treasure pill furnace to refine pills. At that time, wouldn't our sect's strength increase? That kid obtained that alchemy furnace by chance. It has nothing to do with the sect. How can you use his alchemy furnace for public use?" The old man's face turned red. He snorted and said, "If the old man upgraded his alchemy furnace to a magic treasure, won't he be grateful and take it out to contribute to the sect? You have to know the value of a magic treasure alchemy furnace in the North Sea. In the entire North Sea, only that bastard Dao Sheng of the Xianling sect has one." Tianlu Laozu smiled. He is only at the early stage of core forging, and his alchemy skills have only just reached the level of a grandmaster alchemist. A high-grade alchemy furnace is enough for him to fully utilize his alchemy skills. Do you think he needs to upgrade a top-grade alchemy furnace to a magic treasure? I'm afraid he won't even be able to use it. The old man was surprised and said, "The old man has never thought about that." Then he said angrily, If worst comes to worst, the old man will throw away his pride and ask that girl Tianling to step in. You can give him the Linchuan cauldron first. When his alchemy skills reach the level of a grandmaster, who would dare to refuse his alchemy furnace? At that time, he might even get a cauldron magic treasure for free. Tianlu Laozu chuckled and said, Senior brother Tianjiang, why do you think that girl Tianling has been in closed-door training recently? And where is that kid hiding? The old man was Xinling's famous alchemist grandmaster, the master of the alchemy hall, Tianjiang Laozu. Tianjiang Laozu was stunned and said angrily, I was wondering where that kid was hiding. If Xianshan and the others hadn't been guarding the sea around Tianling Mountain, the old man would have thought that it was some old monster from the demon clan or some other sect who had mastered some secret technique that allowed them to enter and leave Tianling Mountain without anyone noticing. They kidnapped that kid. Tianlu Laozu looked at the furious Tianjiang Laozu and laughed. Tianjiang Laozu's temper was explosive, but his mind wasn't slow. He immediately said, No, even if that girl Tianling was messing around with her disciple, it is still a top-level alchemy furnace. With the old man's understanding of you, there is no way you wouldn't care about it. Tianlu Laozu pointed at Tianjiang Laozu and smiled. Xinsan is still here. 3 months are almost up. Without the spirit water cultivating pellet, Xiansan's cultivation base will be destroyed and his lifespan will run out. How long do you think he can hide? The Sky River ancestor slapped his head and said in annoyance, How could I forget about that? No wonder you're not worried at all, you old ghost. When that brat comes out, I'm afraid he'll know that I'm looking for him all over the world. At that time, won't he ask for an exorbitant price? This brat sure has guts. He really has the same temperament as that girl Tianling. He actually dared to scheme against this old man. No wonder Tianling is so protective of him. In his master's cave, Lu Ping used the large spirit vein in the Chonghua Palace to leisurely cultivate for more than a month. He carefully organized his gains during this time and tried to improve the spirit water cultivating pellet several times in an attempt to upgrade it to a core forging level pellet. After referring to a large number of healing pellet recipes in Jinling's collection and wasting a large number of 1,000-year-old spirit herbs, Lu Ping finally managed to upgrade the pellet to a core forging level pellet. After coming out, Lu Ping bid farewell to Lu Tianling and Laozu. Only then did he receive news that Tianjiang Laozu had been looking for Lu Ping recently. If it wasn't for the fact that Lu Tianling and Laozu's Chonghua Palace had been closed because of his closed-door cultivation, Tianjiang Laozu would have already come looking for him. In the back mountain of the Alchemy Pavilion, Lu Ping had just descended when 2 mountain-like intents locked onto him. Then, like a volcanic eruption, the intents carried traces of anger and pressed towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping didn't feel anything. He smiled and continued walking towards Tianlu Laozu's pellet recipe. What Lu Ping didn't know was that Tianlu and Tianjiang Laozu, who had already noticed Lu Ping's arrival, looked at each other in shock. This kid could actually ignore Fa Xiang Laozu's intent pressure. Lu Ping naturally couldn't ignore Fa Xiang Laozu's intent pressure. It was just that he felt that the 2 Laozu's pressure wasn't that heavy. He didn't know that the 2 Laozus in the pellet room were angry at his scheming. They actually wanted to make him suffer a little first. Lu Ping was a little nervous because the 2 Laozus actually didn't make him suffer. It was impossible for the 2 Laozus to not see that he was trying to bully them. Could it be that the 2 of them didn't put the Na Chuan cauldron in their eyes? What he didn't know was that it wasn't that the 2 Laozus didn't give him a light punishment. It was just that this light punishment didn't have much effect on him. Lu Ping entered the pellet room and saw that there was actually a pellet furnace in the middle of Tianlu Laozu's pellet room. Lu Ping curiously scanned the pellet furnace with his divine thought. He was a little disappointed to find that this pellet furnace wasn't one of Jinling's 3 top-grade pellet furnaces. It was a high-grade pellet furnace. A high-grade cauldron was placed in the alchemy room of an Avatar Realm Alchemy Grandmaster. Lu Ping chuckled in his heart. Tianlu Laozu and an old man with a wooden staff were sitting face-to-face playing chess. 2 cups of spiritual tea were placed on the side, slowly emitting a green mist. Lu Ping, who was very fond of spiritual tea, instantly knew that the quality of these 2 cups of spiritual tea was probably not as good as the top-grade spiritual tea he made with royal jelly. Disciple Lu Xianping greets martial uncle Tian Lu and martial uncle Tianjiang. Lu Ping bowed respectfully. Tianlu Laozu raised his eyes from the chessboard and glanced at Lu Ping. You're here today to deliver the Spirit Water Meridian Nourishing Pill? Lu Ping smiled and said, Yes, Grand Marshal Uncle. Although I'm slow-witted and wasted a lot of spirit herbs, I was lucky enough to concoct 2 spirit water pellets. I'm also almost done with the core forging grade Spirit Water Meridian Nurturing Pellets. Oh, not bad. Tianlu Laozu praised him. At the same time, he glanced at Tianjiang Laozu. Just as he was about to say something, Lu Ping spoke first. Other than giving these pills to Elder Xianxin, I actually have another matter to discuss. Tianlu Laozu looked at Lu Ping in surprise. What is it? Lu Ping chuckled and pointed at the cauldron in the middle of the cauldron. I'm now a Grandmaster Alchemist. According to the sect's rules, I'm allowed to control a high-grade cauldron. Tianlu Laozu was stunned. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.